ordering. Clara God family, Happy New Year, Happy 2025. And Mark is here to bring you the season 3 overall, okay? So let me break down exactly what I'm going to be talking about here, how long this is going to be, how this whole thing is about to work out, okay? So first of all, I'm covering the entire season 3, okay? Season 3 is about 240 chapters. It's not exactly finished at this point with the, webtoon version, but it's about 240 chapters. So within the past couple weeks, I've dug in reading season 3 from beginning to end, even rereading some chapters. I'm going to cover everything from my opinion, okay? I'm going to need a lot of you guys who are in my Discord group and community to remember, I have my own opinions. Please feel free to share what you believe below, or whether you agree or not. You guys know I don't necessarily care, but there is no right or wrong here. These are just my opinions, okay? So we're going to start with the good and the bad. And these are going to be different, and these are going to be separate videos, okay? Because I'm going to be talking for a very long time. So in the end, when I finally finish this series, it'll be a full video, which will probably be an hour plus. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to break it off into parts, okay? So this video is going to be about the good and the bad. And then I'm going to talk about arcs, characters, factions, the finality on how we end it, and what I want to see from season 4, okay? So there's a lot of content that's going to come from this, but I am going to space it out maybe 3 or 4 days between each video. So please bear with me. This is going to be a newer, long process, but there's a lot to cover, a lot to talk about, and I honestly probably won't even cover everything that I want to talk about because there's so much content. Need I remind you, these 200 and almost 40 chapters of content, it's years, okay? These are almost 5 years apart, okay? Season 3 started almost 4 or 5 years ago. So this is a lot of stuff that I just straight consumed in the last week. So I apologize if I missed a couple of things, but I think I did write down all the things that I think are important, so bear with me. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the good stuff, the stuff that I liked about season 3, okay? I already gave my rating of this season. I don't think this is the best season. Season 2 still has it. Season 3 was good. I gave it about a 6.5 out of 10. It's definitely not dog crap. It definitely has its moments. I would say that this season is the season of moments, okay? There are big moments and big things that happen that have like such catastrophic effect on the story that they turn out good. And then we have really, really good periods of chapters, and then we have some bad ones. And I will say to those who are new to Tower of God, who didn't have to read the week to week, your experience is a lot different from us who waited week to week, okay? If you got to read everything back to back to back, I can see how it could be more flowing. It can make more sense in the moment. When you're waiting and you're debating stuff and you're in the community and talk about different things and things you might expect, it's a different experience, completely different. And I will say rereading it has been a different experience. I think I do like the beginning a lot more than I did when I was reading it week to week. However, again, I have to be critical about series like this and manga in general. When you have a week-to-week series, you have to entertain or set it up from week to week. So it is a complete different experience. I will say things kind of flow a little bit better if you read it all the way through. But trust me, a lot of you guys who read it week to week like me, we can't wait. We love this series too much. So again, let me start with the good. So the good, I've already established what some of the good is, but the moments. There are fantastic moments this season, okay? Characters. Now, I'm going to get into more deeper detail about characters in my character portion of this series, but characters is another good thing. I'm just going to go over a brief period of characters that I like. I'm going to gloss through some of them just to talk about what I liked about them. The V reveal was a huge thing, okay? That's one of like the biggest moments that we waited for years. Black Shinsu Bomb or Awakening Bomb, that is a huge moment and a huge thing I really, really liked. Sad we didn't get to see it later on. So about the moments, okay? There are so many good moments in this season, okay? For example, the Kun moment where he's playing chess against Traumery, and Traumery, outsmarts Kun even though Kun thought that he outsmarted Traumery. That was a moment of pure hype. I remember that week when I reviewed the chapter and we were talking about how insanely devious Traumery is and was. Like, throughout this season, and this is another good thing, Traumary's, characterization, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but a lot of his characterization from the beginning was that he is a king. Like, he acts as a king who opinion only matters to him and his friends, being the family is. Their opinions are the only thing that matters. And the fact that he crawled down to Khun's level to not only masterly manipulate him into thinking that he won, it was just like a complete son moment. Like how dare you disrespect me? It's just like, you ever had that moment as a teenager where you think that you're smarter than your parents, or you say something to your parents that you think you know more about, the arrogant teenager stage. That's what that felt like. It was like watching a teen get absolutely destroyed. And in the grand scheme of things, that's what it is, because Khun's a couple hundred years old, maybe 1,000, I'm not exactly sure, versus Traumary, who's tens of thousands of years old. So his ability to outsmart Khun, who has been in not even just this season, Khun has been fantastic this season at outsmarting people and planning for things. So to see him get done in, that was just such a great moment. Another good moment, the V reveal. Okay, I thought that was done masterfully by CU. Okay, started off with the background. Okay, we got to see young V when he was traveling with his friends, with the Great Warriors, the young version of them. Speaking of which, is also a really good thing. The past chapters, when we got to see how the Great Warriors got through certain situations and how they fought in their relationships. That was fantastically done. I love seeing that. I think we all love seeing those. Those were like some of the best chapters of the year. But V's reveal is just done really, really well in terms of, on top of seeing the younger versions of the family heads, that getting us hype, getting to see younger version of V, and then getting to see him actually come out of Bomb was great. I thought it was great. Now, there's controversy in the community whether or not people like that V is within Bomb himself. And if you remember me in those reviews when I was talking about those chapters, I didn't have no ifs, ands, or buts about V being inside of Bomb or not. I didn't care. Some people like to say the Naruto thing or the JJK thing. It's whatever, dude. I don't necessarily care. Tropes will always be used and reused. That's just writing. And I thought this was done really, really well. I thought another great moment, even though I didn't love the fight, was Bomb versus White. Now, again, another controversial fight, which I'm not going to get into. Fights will come later on in the bad section, unfortunately. But the start of it, the beginning of it, the Bomb losing his mind part of it was such a hype moment. Getting to see Bomb like absolutely just crack. Like the art that symbolized it, looking at White and looking at Bomb and the coloring of it, it just created that feeling of Bomb just like absolutely going ground zero, just losing his shit. It reminded me of like a Gohan moment, right? Like when Gohan went Super Saiyan 2, it's just like, okay, I'm done. That was such a really, really good moment. And yeah, there are plenty of more great moments. I'm not going to go over each moment, but I'm pretty sure you guys have your own opinions about moments that you really, really liked in the series throughout season 3. So yeah, those are just a couple of mine, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Now, a lot of the new characters I like, okay? And characters is another really hardcore opinion based, because some people, like myself, we will relate to certain characters more than we do others. I thought Traumary was a really good, well-written character, but I didn't like Traumary that much because of what he's done and what he kind of stood for. We know why he, ultimately got there, which I'll talk about more in the characterization video. New characters introduced were really good. We got introduced to a shit ton of characters. Rereading this, guys, the amount of characters that we actually came across is actually insane. It really is insane. But the ones that stuck, the ones that were important, they were really good, okay? And not only that, the background for a lot of them were really good. So for instance, a lot of people have, different opinions about Yama, okay? Yama and his brothers, Doom and Paul. But the Baylor brothers have a really good background, and it was fleshed out completely. I really like that CU did that, and a lot of characters got that this season. But that's just one of the things. Like, I thought Yama's character makes complete sense. It, like, everything that it was written around, from his dad and his parents being, kind of experiments, to their parents being killed, and Yas Ratcha's involvement, which Yas Ratcha is another great new character. Love Yas Ratcha, even though his passing I thought was kind of weak. But, in another moment of his was, fighting Traumery. Insane moment to do that, him and Yama. But it was cool. And, like, again, the Baylor brothers, I really, really liked them, even though Doom really fell off, and so did Paul. Like, we just never seen Paul again. I think Yama's a really solid character. While he's had moments of failure in the series, like, again, the infamous Dumas punch that did absolutely nothing, but he's tried to redeem himself in certain parts of the story, obviously fighting the Reds. He was kind of a factor, in the war, destroying the giant Shinsu cannon. So I like Yama. Overall, like, if I had to rate Yama, like, whether how much I like him or not, he's not a 10. I don't think he's, like, one of the best characters I like. But I think he's a good character, and he has some importance in the story that I enjoy. Another one would be Dumas. Now, Dumas's background, obviously, he comes from Gustang's own, how can I say, loins, but he's a good character for what he stands for. He's written from Gustang's austerity, so he kind of stands firm. He doesn't really back down, and when he gets embarrassed, he tries to compensate for it. So that kind of describes the entire Bomb versus Dumas fight, which I didn't really like, but that kind of describes their fight and how Bomb ended up winning that fight. But Dumas' character, his loyalty, his ability to make decisions, like fighting Traumery's dragon, was just like, that's another epic moment. Like, Dumas was one of the best characters this season, and I really enjoyed him. Tiara is another one this season that I really liked. Tiara was, introduced in the early 550s, Gustang's daughter, and it turns out that she's scripture. I have mixed feelings about the scripture thing, and because we don't know who's real and who's not within the Pobidao, but Tiara could come back, which is kind of a hope of some of us Tiara stands. But I liked her character. She's kind of like psychotic in a way, which, relates back to Gustang. We didn't necessarily get to see what she was written off of, but we know that Gustang could be known as a psychotic. And that's kind of how Tiara is. Like, she was kind of that. She showed that psychotic side of what I believe to be Gustang. So I really liked her fighting, her decisions, the way she walked down Yuri, no problem, even though it was the use of the pen. But even then, like, her bloodthirstiness, her nonchalantness about, like, just smoking people, the way she did Belier, that was a moment. There's a host of other characters who didn't necessarily get the screen time I would have wanted. Like, for example, Sophia Tan. I thought Sophia Tan was a pretty, like, she's like a really cool looking character, because we got a lot of different character designs this season. But she is a cool design, and her ability to control lighthouses, like, was really cool. And I was hoping that we would get to go to Seoul Weon, if I say it correctly, the big tree where everybody's staying. I would like to see a little bit more of her, even though, we did get a lot of elder reveals, but she's the one, like, I'm most interested in, because, she's able to contain the blast. And, like, that's a massive feat also for her, like, the ability to control lighthouses to that extent. The only other person we've seen do that in, that was this season, was Proust. But, rest in peace, whether Proust is alive or not. But, so Sophia Tan is one who stuck out to me, like, really, really cool character. You can also, kind of pull out Kel Helm. I know a lot of people don't like Kel Helm, but I thought that his design was really cool. And his characterization makes a lot of sense to me. Like, obviously, losing to Zahar, when it's kind of like getting humbled, right? It's like, you're the best basketball player in your neighborhood until you travel outside your neighborhood and you start to play everybody from the state. That's what Kel Helm experienced. So his characterization makes complete sense, and it's not like the guy backed down. The guy actually, like, went to get into the fight. He actually went into the mix. So, he helped out in the end, but I understand, people think he's kind of a clown. Yeah, there are, like, plenty of characters. Obviously, Traumery and Gustang's backgrounds are really, really good. I'm not going to get into those, but those were pretty much, fleshed out to an extent. I did want some more of Traumery, but that's getting into the negatives and we're about to get there. But before that, I also want to point out forms. So forms are another thing that I really like this season. Bomb's Black Shinsu form. I like Yama's new form. It's really, really cool. Bomb's Leviathan form is really, really cool, even though, you know, the utilization of it in that moment is not something I necessarily like, but it's a good form. Traumery's transformation into like his full form was a cool form. Tiara's transformation into like a dragon was like a cool form, even though it's like, you know, it's an ability that she can do, so she can transform into anything. But you understand what I'm saying. It was just like the coolness of it. You know, obviously Lustlek and Urek, they didn't necessarily change forms. You know, Lustlek kind of did, but the fight and the stuff that's happening in it was like cool. You know, a lot of that stuff was just cool to see, you know, and later on, if it ever gets animated, it's cool to see, like just really good stuff. But yeah, so I think I cover a lot of what's good, guys. A lot of the stuff I talked about carried this season. And I'll also say, like, the plot overall wasn't terrible. The plot was, you know, pretty decent overall. Certain arcs were a little bit meh. I think it wrapped out pretty solid, so I can't necessarily be mad at that. Now, the bad. And the bad's the bad, guy. So, you know, I know, you know, this is going to be a super opinionated thing, so people will have disagreements with me. That's completely fine. So first and number one thing for me, I've said this multiple times. It's the setting. The setting. The setting was so bad this season. It felt like we were floating in space for years, guys. Just floating in space. We have some subpar moments where we are in buildings and on ground. For instance, the Cat Tower, the hotel, the Sprout, where we get to walk around and actually run around and use our feet. You know, parts of where we're standing on top of ships, which don't have that much space to it. But the setting was so sickening. I hated it. You know, we just were floating in the air. And I don't want to call it laziness because I have no right to say that. But I will say the lack of creativity there was disappointing. It was. You know, in earlier Tower of God, you know, season 1 and season 2, we got multiple different places to go. We got to see cities, we got to see abandoned areas. Season 2, the Floor of Death, the Data Floor, the Hell Train. Like, these are all cool fucking places, guys. Like, they turned out to be really, really cool settings. And we lacked that this season. It just didn't feel like any creativity with any of it, you know. And coupled with that, you bring more issues with that. So another issue is when it comes to the floating spaces, fights become unimaginable, if that makes sense. So a big problem with a lot of people that they have this season is the Gusting versus Traumery fight. The most infamous fight that we've waited for this entire season. It underperformed. And I think it underperformed because of the setting. It's hard to tell the scale of damage that these guys can do when there's just floating air. It doesn't matter. Destruction will only make sense if there's something to be destroyed. For example, I use JJK often as an example. If you watch the anime, if you saw Sukuna when he destroyed Shibuya, that gave you a scale of how insane he is. That's what I'm talking about. You get to see these things and you get to see how ridiculous these guys is. You know, like another one example, Naruto. Almighty push from Pain. You get to see the destruction of the Leaf Village. Like, that's the kind of scale we need to see when you talk about the people who are the strongest people in the tower. And it just didn't hit. You know, obviously there's going to be a little bit of misunderstanding when two god level characters are fighting each other. We won't understand the amount of damage that they're taking because, you know, they're god level characters. But you gotta find a way to describe that to the audience so we understand what's really happening. And then, you know, with that, you get a lot of noise, okay? Shinsu is a cool concept. But it becomes a problem when you use it so loosely the way it's been shown in these fights. Shinsu flying all over the pages. All over the pages. All over the page. Lusug versus Urek. Obviously, there's spell usage there, but there's noise all over the pages. Okay? Dumas versus Bomb. Noise all over the pages. As Ratchet versus Yama. Transformations were cool, but there's basically slashes going all over the pages. It's just like, it gets a little bit uncomfortable and unfathomable when you start to see a lot of that. Some of the best fights in this season had to do with a lot of hand-to-hand combat. For example, I don't think anybody would argue one of the best fights this season was Bomb versus Ren. That's because it was in a hotel. That's because we could see the destruction. That's because we saw Bomb get up and personal and literally destroy Ren's ancient Shingwa with no problem. Like, just ripping it apart. That's what I'm saying, guys. So, I think, on top of the setting, you create more problems with that. And it took a lot of the good fights that we might have gotten away from us. And it's unfortunate. Tower of God gets compared to One Piece often because of its world building, the amount of characters in it, and how long it's been running. The amount of useless characters that we got this season is absolutely fucking asinine, and I don't mean that in... There's no way to sugarcoat that. When I went back to reread this season, it was just a lot of useless characters, guys. So, for example, you guys remember Yazracha's corpse, the 5th Army Corps? You guys realize that we got backgrounds on those guys? It's so pointless. So, for example, you remember the rat guy who has the markings all over his face? Do you know that we spent about 2 chapters discussing his background? Like, he ultimately died, but you know that we talked about his background on how his race took advantage of him and he was paying for them and moving them and all that shit. About who gives a fuck? He's a nobody. He's just his division commander in Yazracha's corpse, who means nothing. But we got complete background on him. There's another guy, the guy who was sitting in the chair, who was all about saving animals and shit. That guy, we got his background. Who gives a shit? Who are these guys? They're nobodies. Yo, it's so crazy that we got backgrounds on them and we didn't get any background on Lobopia people. Like, that shit bothers me to my core. This season, we got to meet the Lobopia family in earnest. Obviously, we've heard about them. Obviously, we've heard about Pobito family. But we got to see, we were actually on the mothership. Bro, we did not get to see Lobopia culture at all. That is nuts. We got to see Pobito's culture. We did. When the 3 Lobopia branch heads got captured, and we got to see that there's book clubs, and, there's some people against the war, spraying stuff down. We got to see that everybody reads books in libraries, almost everybody wears glasses. We got an understanding of what Pobito's culture was like. That was solid. Lobopia, one of the coolest families with the coolest abilities to be an anima who can control animals. We did not get to see the mothership. That shit eats me up, bro. How cool would it have been to walk down the street in the mothership and see a guy with a monkey on his back, a guy riding an alligator, a guy riding a giant swan? How cool would it have been to see something like that? And we got none of it. None of it. I realized that we got introduced to so many Lobopia characters. I had forgotten how big Lobopia was. Because we went on that hiatus, we got introduced to so many Lobopia characters even before we get to like Hotel Arc and beyond. Before that, I forgot how many of those guys were in the war. We got introduced to so many cool characters. Bro, we did not get to see Lobopia culture. That breaks my fucking heart, yo. Traumary's gone, so showing that now is kind of like, well, who gives a shit? Because you had to show it when the family head was around, so we can see how things are properly structured, how things are going to go. Now, could it come back around? Eventually. but there was no better time than to do it when we were there. Like, even when we had, Coon, Rack, and Tiara and Matt flying over, we could have saw something, bro. You could have gave us a little something, bro. Nothing. That is a grave injustice. But we get backgrounds on, yes, Ratchet's 5th Army Corps characters. We get their backgrounds. Like, like who cares about these people, bro? Why? That shit doesn't matter. It's a heartbreaker. Okay? Useless characters who don't mean shit. There's a lot of it. If we go back to the Baylord arc, Bomb's hype. I swear. Every chapter, it felt like Bomb was saying ding ding. Ding ding! Ding ding! Where's ding ding? Ding ding! Let me help ding ding! No! Don't die ding ding! Where'd you put... Bro. The hype for this... Yo, Bomb literally met that dude 2 chapters ago. Like, and was sweating for ding ding? Pause! Like he was Coon or Rack. That shit was annoying as fuck. Ding ding, no, ding ding, don't die, no. Useless. Who gives a fuck? No, it does. It in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. It didn't mean shit. It didn't mean shit. Just absolutely pointless and useless. Him and the Louis kid, like who? Nobody cares, bro. Obviously, they served their purpose for, having Doom's heart or whatever. But, Gato and, Louis, his actual son. All this confusion for fucking what, bro? These guys didn't matter in the end. And that's what I'm saying. They were useless. They didn't matter. They didn't show up, at the wall. They didn't show up after to help. We didn't see them on the field fighting with Yama. I know some of them got captured or whatever. But we didn't even see them. So, and don't get me wrong, I kind of like the Baylord arc, but a lot of the characters and people we got introduced, this shit was ass, bro. It was ass. Like, a lot of these characters were ass throughout the season, bro. Just, I would have rather learned about Lobopia branch head backgrounds. Like, I don't know, the Chili Bear guy. Or I don't know, Ranshoot, who has the goddamn Chupacabra. One of the coolest animals, or excuse me, Shinigami we've seen. I'd rather gotten background on them than to get backgrounds on random people in Zahar's Division Commander's armies. Like, who cares, bro? That part of it stung a lot. And I just think that was done terribly wrong. Overall, I think fights took a dip in quality. A large part of it is what I've already told you, it's the setting. But a lot of the conclusions from these fights ended in stalemates. They ended in stalemates. And that you cannot continue to do. You cannot do that, to you. You cannot. That, you have to pick a winner and a loser. Okay? Dumas versus Bomb. A big problem with that fight is, one, Bomb wasn't supposed to win the fight. Bomb won the fight off, realizing Dumas's nature. But Dumas was world stronger. And Dumas had no reason to really let Bomb go. Like, unless there was something being told to us, because Dumas ends up saying, hey, whatever decisions you make is probably the right one, I'm going to let you go because the family leader will, probably accept your decision. Whatever bullshit he was saying, if we got some background on Gustings telling Dumas, hey, if the regular decides to fight you and try to get past you and it's respectable, then let him. Okay, we get some background on it. No, Dumas just makes a decision on his own, which is to basically disobey Gusting and let Bomb go. But Dumas is world stronger, and we didn't get to see that. It's a heartbreaker. Leslek versus Urek ends in a stalemate. Ultimately, Gusting versus Traumery ends in a stalemate because it gets interrupted by Urek. Bomb and Karaka versus Caliban ended because, the ship blew up. Like Bolink versus Caliban didn't necessarily have a winner. White versus Bomb would have been so much more satisfying if Kun and Rack did not get involved. The ending killed it. Because it was seemingly like Bomb was overwhelming White, trying to draw out the souls and everything else, but then he needed help to finish White. It was like, well, bro, he was just dominating this man, but now he's not. It's like, I would rather watch Bomb destroy White like he said he would, than to continue to watch this go down the way it's going down. Like, Kun and Rat getting involved, and then obviously power-ups is another issue this season. They got a massive power-up, which we don't really get to see until later on, where Rat does a transformation, and now Kun can use spells with the Sweet Fish. Not enjoying the power-ups, which couples into also Bomb. Bomb's progression is absolutely fucking insane. Now, I'm a One Piece reader, and an issue I have with One Piece often is that before the end of Kaido's arc, forgive me, I can't remember off the top of my head, y'all know me, Luffy was not winning his fights legitimately. And I've made this argument countless amount of times with people. Luffy would win fights by his stamina would run out, he'd get carried somehow, and then he comes back full powered. It's the constant thing that gets used. Even his fight versus Kaido, he gets knocked out, comes back, liberation drums. Fight versus Doflamingo, gets knocked out, gets carried around by some bullshit, comes back around. It's that type of shit that bothers me. Honestly, at the end of Dressrosa, I still wouldn't have put Luffy over Doflamingo. But it's the same thing that's happening here. Bomb went from ranker to high ranker so fast, it makes no sense. Now, you can make an argument that Bomb was high ranker level the beginning of season 3, which is fucking asinine, because obviously we don't get to see Bomb beat a ranker until, in season 3. It happens in season 3. But then it kind of just jumped. Mind you, Bomb did no training. He did the training, obviously, with Evankill, but I'm saying, in Season 3, what training did Bomb really do? He didn't really train with anybody. But as time progressed through each arc, Bomb seemingly gets to high ranker level. And I get it. Bomb's supposed to learn. He's quick. That's Bomb, right? The problem is, he left his friends in the dust. And I think it was too quick. And now we're at a point where it's hard to really scale Bomb, because some people think that Bomb can body Caliban. The distance from the White fight to where the series ended, the White fight wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. It really was only a couple months in like, if even that. It was like, he fought White, got Jin Song out, they got transported somewhere else. That's how we get to the hotel arc. And then what? So it's really hard to scale Bomb at this moment when it comes to keeping tabs on where to put him and how fast he's grown. I don't think it was done in a great way, because it's like, okay, do you think that White would have a problem fighting the Chili Bear branch head? It's just like, like Bomb obviously got frozen fighting the Chili Bear branch head, right? But then we saw Bomb body El Baba. So I get it, people can be different levels, but power scaling is, obviously it's a community thing. It's, something that the fandom does. But it's weird when Bomb is surviving around all these high rankers, and so is Kun and Rat, who aren't high ranker level. But then yet, Rat gets a buff out of nowhere, even though we have not seen Rat show any combat progress since the data floor explode into this monster that bodies a branch head. It doesn't sit right with me. Even after rereading it, it still doesn't look good. And last but not least, I'll say, my last negative thing, and the biggest thing I think that makes absolutely no sense, that goes back to the Bomb and Dumas fight. Guys, Prince and Arc Raptor were killed by White. Bomb lost his shit over this. That's how he got into the fight versus White. Because White told him. Coon died in the Dumas fight. Coon died. His heart stopped. Coon died. Bomb did not freak out. He didn't. Guys, it's Bomb, Coon, and Rack. That's the crew. And Dorsey sometimes. It's Bomb, Coon, and Rack. Bomb did not lose his mind. Coon died. He died. I'm sorry. If you're freaking out over Arc Raptor and Prince, you should go 10 million% over Coon dying. That's why in the Bomb and Dumas fight, for those who don't remember, people were thinking we were going to get, the Black Shinsu mode. Everybody thought that. Because your best friend just died. He didn't even know that he was available until, he saw the sweet fish over there jumping. But he didn't know. So why doesn't he go his most extreme form? Extreme form. Emotionally, when his mans is gone. It creates the most fake tension when Coon dies again. Because Coon died earlier in season 3. Coon died, guys. This is the Coon died twice this season. Which is fake tension as fuck. Y'all remember? Paul killed Coon. I completely forgot about that. Paul killed Coon. He got revived by the sweet fish. Dumas killed Coon. He gets revived by the sweet fish again. Bro. That smells, and rereading it was not fun, like bullshit. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not good writing. It's not. You better off finding a bullshit way for him to escape Paul than him getting killed and revived. And it happened twice in a season. So you're telling me that Coon almost has a infinite life glitch. That, if Coon dies, he may not stay dead. I don't like that. And that can be opinionated. People may feel differently about it, but I do not like that. I don't think it's good. It creates fake tension. It creates problems. And like throughout the series, the season, there's a lot of fake tension. So, I think that's the bad for the season, guys. Obviously, we are going to have different opinions, but this is the first part of this series. So now let's move on to the arcs. So first and foremost, I gotta let you guys know, if you look on the Wikipedia, the way the arcs are broken up, there are like a lot of mini arcs. I kind of made my own kind of arc description here where I combine certain arcs just to make this not too long-winded, and I just think that some of the arcs are literally like 6 or 7 chapters. We can probably combine some of these to make it a little bit better. So first and foremost, there's going to be the Baylord arc. Then you have the wall/nest, which I'm going to combine into one. Then you have the second wall and the cat tower, which I also am going to combine into one. Moving on from there, we have the hotel and the pre-war arc, which I'm going to combine into one, obviously. Then we have the brief period of the book war, which is just over 20 chapters. The killing chess piece game with a mix of a lot of flashbacks. And then we have, ultimately, Gustang versus Tron, which also I made its own standalone. So again, guys, these are my opinions, and I'm just going to rank the ones from best to worst. So the first one is pretty obvious, I think, and it's going to be Gustang versus Tron, which is chapter 627 and onward. So in here we have a lot of stuff. We have obviously the Gustang versus Tron fight, Adori at the end, Urek, Dumas versus Bomb, like a bunch of different things in there. So I'm going to start with the things I like, and then I'll slightly go to the stuff I dislike about the arc. So first and foremost, the V reveal was probably almost the best thing about this entire season. Who expected us to get Bomb's father? Like, nobody could have predicted that. Nobody could have seen this coming. We also got to see a brief flashback of what the Great Warriors were like when they were really young. And then we got to see V in his actual own body before we get to see him inside a Bomb. And I actually like that look on Bomb. I don't know about you guys, but the design for Bomb when he's being controlled by V is a lit version of Bomb. Like, I really like the reveal. I thought was done pretty clean. I really didn't expect this. Like, once we got introduced to his character, who thought that we would actually see him in real time? Again, I said this in the last video. I know there's a lot of controversy whether people like the concept of son being controlled by his father type thing, and I get it. But I personally have no problems with it. I think it creates a very interesting dynamic, especially for Bomb's character, who is in a weird spot. We know that Bomb's like way powerful than his, associates that work with him, and he's kind of outclassed them. So I'm glad that he's kind of got away from them. That happened towards the end of the arc where he goes back with Fug, and he can kind of learn more about himself. We already see that V's trying to train him in a way. So Bomb will get stronger, but it's also going to be difficult to navigate this guy who's potentially his father, but we know that term is used kind of differently in this situation. Like, some people don't think that V sees him as his son and he's just a weapon of mass destruction, and I know the officials came out and it's kind of described as that as well, but it's gonna create a very good part of season 4. And I wonder where it goes. Like, I don't see how he eliminates V from inside of him, but maybe a lot of people have already speculated is that, V's original body gets found and Bomb is able to place his soul back into his body. I don't think that's too far-fetched, but there's got to be more to that, especially where we got that Gusting said that he saw, V's dead body, which means that Gusting may even know where it is. So yeah, really, really good stuff with V. Definitely the biggest reveal out this entire season. Now, also towards the end, and might I just say, the story wrapped up to go into season 4 really well. There is some stuff in the middle that I don't like, but seeing Adori was obviously one of the hypest things. I know people have some tit-tats about her being a member of the Ari family, but I don't really care regardless. I'm not really a stickler for stuff that was mentioned in blog posts and didn't get retconned. I don't really care that much, but I do think she looks good. I love her design. I don't know how to scale her correctly right now. Other than that, her reveal was huge. Maria's reveal was also huge. And that's why people think that season 4 is going to be like definitely huge on the princess arc, because we're getting high tier princesses that we never seen. I love Maria's design. Also, her weapon is a giant lance, which looks really cool, and she looks like she cleaned up Anik, and you guys know I'm an Anik fan, so seeing Anik struggle is like great anytime, because she does have that cocky attitude, even though she's gotten better throughout season 2. Stumbling back into the flashback with V and the family heads, like, we didn't get to see all of them, which I'm a little sad by, but we did get to see like Gusting and Trom's dynamic on how they became like a dynamic duo. How they remind me of? They remind me of like a Scooby and Shaggy of the group. Like, they kind of get lost, go on their own adventures. Not necessarily punks of the group, but the guys who usually fall into some stuff and need a bit of saving. I like their dynamic. I also like to see Yi Rang, and she's kind of the loudmouth mom of the group. Not necessarily like the mature mom. I'm gonna say that High Urine is that, but like, she's like the angry, get mad at everybody thing. And the dynamic between her, and then we got to see Eduan and also V, and how like Gusting even became like the guy that he is. The stakes between him and V, on V making him like the guy who punishes the great warriors for stuff that they do. That whole thing was fantastic. I love Gusting's character on how it was built and why he has resentment for V, because it's not in the way that people assumed before. Like, there was always in the back of our minds that Gusting didn't like V, ever since it was mentioned when he talked to Bomb about like your father being the worst person he possibly knew. He only says that because he was burdened with a responsibility that he can't let go of, because we know that Gusting is kind of like a justice, stands on what he believes in type of guy, even though he's shown to falter in this season, especially when it comes to killing Trom. He faltered massively. And I think there's a bit of human there, but it's also like, I love that there's no definition of like perfect way of going out. Like, another example would be Trom, right? Like, we know that Trom's like really cutthroat, really like doesn't care about anybody. That's how he's like, as a family head, conducting himself since becoming a family head. Like, and even before then, we know that Trom is the one most distant from humans. So him crashing out at the end, taking his own life, honestly, because he killed Amweez, is what I'm going to assume is the reason. Extreme humanity there. Like, bro got to feel everything that he committed and did throughout these thousands and thousands of years in one moment, and it was enough to crush him. And I do love that, though I'm not a big fan of him taking himself out. I'll get more into that when I start talking about the negatives, but I do like everything about Trom's character. The guiltiness of it and the guiltiness of all his sins and everything he committed kind of just weighed on him in one moment. Like I did enjoy that. And you know, I was one of the few people who predicted that something like this could happen. You know, I predicted earlier on, if you've been here a while, you know, I've been saying for a while that emotions and memories have been manipulated and it's attached to their immortality. So like, you can see kind of a track of what Bond may need to do to gain favor with the family heads. He may need to get them to release their immortality. Whether Bond can break the contract, which I don't see why Bond couldn't break an immortality contract, but if he could, then family heads become emotional, they get their feelings back, and maybe they return to a bit of human. Now, with everything else, I've already said in the last video, if you watched it, that this season is the season of moments. So I think that this arc was the arc with the biggest moments that mattered the most, and that's why it's my number one. Now, there are things about this arc I don't like, okay? One being Urek. Urek has been a plot device in this season. Now, granted, in another arc, which we'll get to, the Urek versus Leslek, that was a treat, but Urek being here was it's too obvious of a plot device. Like, especially seeing that he didn't accomplish his goal, it was obvious what his use was going to be. And it does bother me a bit because throughout season 3, there were no winners. Like, throughout season 3, there were a lot of fights that were won in haphazard ways or were massive draws. In Tron versus Gustang, people were saying early on that Urek would disrupt it. And I hate to say it, but it was like the writing was on the wall. Like, it was obvious it was going to happen. And it was just like, all that for what, you know? You know, all that for Tron to get taken out by V, and then ultimately, you know, like, it was a little bit anticlimactic on top of the fight. Everybody I've seen dislikes the fight. If you like the fight, please comment below so I can know that you like the fight, because most people did not like the fight. It did feel like a Pokemon battle. It did. Gustang summoning stuff out of the book, Tron summoning more animals. Gustang was the one getting physical. Now, you know, in the beginning with the Oak Bee and getting up close, but it felt like that. And I did like when Tron summoned the Lush Dragon that was supposedly Amwee's. I did like when him and her were fighting together and trying to like jumping Gustang in a way. It was cool. That dynamic wasn't bad, but it still felt like, you know, he needs something attached to him. And in the latter half, when we see like Tron go full strength, it was a lot more interesting because now he's using abilities that he didn't even know, like him deleting the space, like different dimensions of space. And it, for a while, it didn't seem like Gustang could, you know, actually fight back. And people have a problem with Gustang's bag not being as deep. And I agree, like Gustang should have had a lot more stuff. And like I've mentioned, like I thought Gustang will pull out like this legendary armor that he could put on that couldn't be damaged, or Shinsu couldn't touch it, or I was expecting like a lot of creativity with Gustang's book. Like Tiara mentioned early on that imagination is the hugest thing when it comes to the book and the pen. So Gustang lacking that was like a shocker. Like it was, you know, underwhelming. The fight coming down to basically Blossom's fire and Gustang seemingly about to win, it didn't amount to much. Like the fire for Blossom was really cool and a cool concept, but you know, I must admit that the utilization of it in that moment was kind of like like okay, like, and I understand people when they say that Gustang using other people's stuff and using outside abilities is a bit distasteful, though I don't fully agree with that, because Tower of God is that type of story where people get weapons and swords and stuff like that that help them and enhance their ability. Granted, what the Sweet Fish's ability does is like, you know, bringing Coon back to life. It's still like a nice utility. You can even say like Rat getting, you know, a giant lance in the Baylor arc was kind of like it was given to him and he used it against White. So like if you're not discounting stuff like that, even though they're able to use it, then you can't necessarily hold Gusting that same standard. But I think people do because he's a family head. But again, then you have to criticize everybody who has something given to them and how they use it. I also don't like Traumary's death. Like, I know it makes sense in a way, but it was too sudden because there's more stuff that needed to be answered. I wanted to see Robodon's interaction with Traumary. Like, it would have been nice like if Traumary died a little bit slowly so he could talk to Robodon, talk to his eldest son. I would love to see a conversation between them. Traumary didn't react to V actually being the one to knock him out. We didn't get to see what he thinks about V, what their relationship was. I was really banking on that, like, massively, like V and Trom's relationship. I wanted to see how he would, what he would think from seeing it, because the way it sounds like V died and all the family heads knew about it or saw it type thing. So I would love to see like what Traumery thought about it, but we didn't get to see it. And then it just felt too sudden. And while we did get that, you know, nice moment with him and Weeds when he dies, it's just like I needed a bit more from it before he went. And not getting that was a little dissatisfying. Right, lastly, a problem that I know a lot of people have, which I don't have as much as most people, but I'll say from a scale like 1 to 10, I'm probably like a bit of a 4. The art design in the fights are weird. Not saying that things are being drawn badly. The zooming in on fights, like, and that was the entire season 3. This is not just this arc thing. It's hard to tell. You know, the noise problem is a constant problem in a lot of fights where there's Shensu flying all over the place, spells and blasts and everything, and it's hard to tell what's going on. And especially when you're zoomed in on people's like hands where they're swinging or when they're kicking, it's like not necessarily beautiful. And you know, the way we view these panels, they're very long, and it's hard to keep up with what's going on when the panels are so long and the way they're drawn. So I'm not big on that, but I understand people's plight when they complain about it because it is hard to follow sometimes. I really like that arc. It was really good. A lot of good stuff in there, and it has me hyped for season 4. Now, moving on to my second favorite arc, which I'm pretty sure none of you guessed it, but it's the hotel arc. Actually, I like the hotel pre-war arc a lot, okay, because it was pretty concise, the fights were solid, and the things that were happening. So I'll start off with the pre-war stuff. So Gustang announcing to his family that they're going to war with Lobopia was such a good and hype moment. It was just like, look at this family head ignite the passion in his family, like, hey, these guys are heretics, they're liars, we're going to war. And it doesn't, it's the weirdness of it, it doesn't fit because they're bookworms, they're book nerds. Like, these people got their head like in the books constantly. So to see them excited and ready to, like, you know, let's get to it, it was lit. And then you have everything that happened during it, like the branches that tried to escape, Gustang like cinders them, other parts of the other members of the family are throwing spears and purifying, the guy purified stuff who looked like Harry Potter. It definitely set the tone for like how wild and how many bodies were going to drop during this entire war. You have that, and then you get to see Zahard for a brief period where he's talking to Traumery about going to war and capturing Bomb and making him like the great warriors. You know, I'm hyped whenever I see Zahard. And then the hotel itself, Bomb versus Ren, probably top 3 fight for me in the entire season. Just solid. Like, Ren's abilities, despite them being kind of disgusting, he's summoning ancient Shenhua, he's got that connection thing, and he's like, you know, throwing hands at the same time. I thought all that was cool. And then we get to see Bomb, who's very confident in his fighting skills, figuring it out, showing us a new tactic of how he's fighting and how he's thinking, and ultimately dominating the fight. It was good. It wasn't necessarily because Bomb dominated. I thought it was solid on both sides. Like, Ren's ability did get to Bomb, and if it wasn't for Bomb's unlimited power and unlimited use of Shinsu, that fight doesn't go his way. Like, a lot of people lose that fight. So, you know, in essence, it's a good fight, and, you know, overall, I think Ren was like a pretty good opponent and one who we've been waiting for a long time. And, you know, during that time, this is before we even got to know Trom, we get to see how Trom's acting. Like, Trom is like a very, very, like, how can I say, kingly figure who doesn't play any shit. He's telling people, this is how this is gonna get done, don't bother me. He's very domineering, like, especially that conversation you had with Jin Song, like, still think you can change things, like, you just forget that, like, you know, we are like that. Like, you can't stop what we want to do. Talking about the Great Warriors, like, we are those guys. Even his interaction with Kun, when, you know, obviously they play the chess game and Kun gets dominated, and Trom just shows his vindictiveness. And not only that, he shows how smart and calculated he is, like in a different way than Gustang is. It was really, really cool to see. And, you know, bro is just like 10 steps ahead already. So seeing more of him. Then we got Tiara versus Yuri, which ultimately was a bit of a treat. It was kind of like princess versus princess type thing, even though Tiara's not a hard princess. But seeing that fight was really decent. It also got us a chance to really scale where Yuri stands. Despite Tiara having the broken pen ability, Yuri's pretty lit. But Yuri lost that fight, especially towards the end where she's about to ignite the 213 series weapons. Like, we saw when she did that before what was about to happen. She was about to crash out, lose her mind. Tiara was getting in her ass that much that she was about to do it again, which I thought was insane. But overall, I love their exchange. I love their dynamic. I like the fight. Then the setting for the hotel is an interesting setting as well. If you watched the last video, you know that setting was a big issue for me the entire season. So seeing this setting, it was a nice switch up, even though it's like closeted in rooms and stuff, but I thought it was pretty cool. Now, things I disliked about this art. I'm definitely gonna say Lyle being a big focal point here was like an issue. Like, she was extremely annoying. And I get it, you're gonna have characters like that who are like really annoying, really arrogant, really narcissistic. I'm really disappointed that she didn't get to fight Ann Dorsey, because they seemed like they were hyping up, and that would have been such a really good fight, because we would have got to see Ann Dorsey like really pull out all her stops and everything she learned with Yuri. I thought that was going to be like a sick moment, and we just got denied that, and that hurt a lot. She's not a bad looking princess overall, I'm not gonna lie. She's pretty nice looking. I think I like her looks better than I like Shalile's, but even so, her character is like really unbearable. Her thing with the sea snake was like really weird interaction. I think we spent a little too much time on that. I don't really care about sea snake, because again, he's one of those things we never got to see again. Like, ever since the hotel arc, and then we never got to see Sea Snake again. He didn't matter, he didn't do it. Nothing came of it, nothing happens, and I don't know if it's gonna matter down the line. Along with the entire tournament itself, like, the tournament just wasn't interesting. Not enough interesting characters showed up. I do like Drabi, and I did like the girl with the black hat, forgive me, I forget her name. She and Drabi were like a really cool duo, and you know, seeing different members of Fug is always pretty cool, because you know, like, Fug is Fug, right? So Drabi was a bit different, and she also used an attack that like people couldn't see, which I'm still wondering about that attack. You know, I did forget, and I did leave out Chomari versus Gustang, the pre-fight. Now, in the long run, this fight was kind of ass, because it was mostly just summoning and them standing there looking at each other, and their things are fighting. Like, you know, Gustang's swords are slashing, his knives are slashing, and Trom's just reforming his animals. So it was a bit boring in hindsight, but in the moment it was hype. Like, you guys remember what it was like to see that first exchange. It was a bit hype. I did dislike Kun interrupting the fight, because it's like, it's Kun. Like, he shouldn't be able to stand in the presence of these guys. And that's one of the things we talk about, why these regulars are able to stand in the presence of stuff like that. But it was a decent pre-fight, and it gave us an observation on what these guys are capable of. So in the moment, it was pretty cool. Other than that, I would say it's definitely my second favorite out of all. So you guys, you know, keep up with me. Let me know what you think. What are your 1 and 2 so far? The wall/nest. I think the wall/nest has some of the best exchanges and fighting, period, because of the amount of people that are involved in it. I really like the beginning of like the nest, like the first defensive wall that they had to get past. You know, that Bomb showed up by himself at first with no help from anybody. We knew that people were going to show, but Bomb stepping on that field by himself, ready to take on the whole defensive wall, was just like a moment. And then, you know, he got to fight the guy with the star eyes. He humbles him, and Bomb showing his strength as a, you know, ranker level regular, which is crazy to say. You know, in that same arc, we got to see Bomb actually fight the test ranker, and he showed everybody that he was ranker level. That was like huge and a big thing to see. It was like, we got to see Bomb's progress, even though we knew how strong he was. It was good to see in that moment. And then the stuff with the wall, before we got to see what they really were. Cha and Dawon were like really hype characters. I thought they had like a lot of potential, especially how you know, later on the line Dawon fell into kind of like Bomb's lap along with Cha. They seemed like people who were going to support Bomb, and I was saying for a long time that Bomb needs characters. You know, I know people don't like Dawon, I know people like Cha more, but if Bomb's going to be high ranker level, he's going to need friends around him who can do the same thing that he can. So Cha and Dawen were in this weird space where they're not regulars and they're not like attached to any group like Fug. So I thought, you know, they were good people to be in his back pocket. And we know how like Dawen's possibly dead, so it kind of sucks. And now he just has Cha. But I thought they played good roles that would have been important. You know, some of the fights in the season were really, really good. Yas Ratcha, we got the introduction of Yas Ratcha, who is one of the best characters this season. He was really good. Seeing him dominate Yama, where you thought that Yama was like this really polarizing figure. You know, if you read the Baylor arc beforehand, Yama's this polarizing figure who runs his own ship and all this other shit. It's like Yama's the GOAT, right? Then Yas Ratcha comes up and he starts humbling him, like controlling him, controlling his people. I thought that was like a really good twist to hype, like a character who turned out to be hype, but then turned around and is like, okay, there's still people better than you, right? At that wall, we got to see Bomb and Karaka fight Caliban, and like that was a really decent fight, even though I did also like the subplot to that. Libolic tried to use his, you know, ship to blow up Yama's ship to stop everything they had going, sacrificing all of Caliban's soldiers, which ultimately brought Caliban to their side, Bomb's side. I thought that plot was pretty solid and, you know, pretty likable. And then again, there were a lot of fights that also happened, you know, during the Nest and there, where we got to see Evankill kind of dominate, fighting division commanders. Then we got to see like a lot of Lobopia people. This is what I mean when I say, if you forgot everything that happened during the Nest and, you know, the defensive walls, then you forget how many Lobopia people we got introduced to. I had completely forgotten until I reread like how many people were attached to Zahar's army and also were like sent there by Traumery. Got the Wingbird guy, you had Lavav, who was, you know, sniping and fighting with Evankill, obviously Yas Ratcha, Haracha, who was also in his division. Like, we got to see a lot of different parts of, you know, different animals and stuff, and this is like hyping up Lobopia because it's like, oh, look at like all these cool things and animals and stuff that they can do. And it was a lot different from stuff that we've seen previously, because, you know, most stuff that we see in Tower of God, which has like one of the best combat systems I've seen like in any series ever, it's just like, oh, a lot of weapons and, you know, Shinsu manipulation, you know, the different positions. But now we have like these animas who can control animals and use their abilities in different ways. It was hyping up Lobopia. Even though they were taking losses, it was still like really cool to see, right? But I will say, again, there's stuff I didn't like. So the whole plot behind the wall was a little bit dry. Like, it was like, you don't really care. Like, there was never a moment where watching the wall stuff and watching Dawen's sister, even though she got like messed with, which made me feel bad for her a bit, you know, the nature of the people there, the big plot behind releasing them, it wasn't good. Even when rereading it and like trying to think like about like the stuff ahead, it still wasn't good enough as a plot. Like, you don't really care about the stuff that happened at the wall. It was kind of just like, oh, you guys are going to war soon, let's not like disrupt Zahar, even though Zahar's trying to break the treaty. It was just like a bunch of characters in there that you just don't care about, who didn't necessarily matter. So the plot wasn't really that good. While I did like this arc, I thought it was like decent enough. The moments weren't that big. Like, the moments were good, but weren't that big. There actually isn't too much I actually dislike about this arc that makes it a bad arc. It's just not better than the previous two to me, because the previous two had way bigger moments that have significance in the story. But overall, it's not a bad arc. It's pretty average, if I had to say, if I'm putting those two together. And again, that is the Wall of Coexistence with the first defensive wall. Solid enough, but not super fantastic where like it's the best thing since sliced bread. Now, fourth on this list is the Killing Chess Piece game / flashback. Just to remind you, in this arc, we get introduced to the Killing Chess Piece game where we go to the Sprout. We also get to see the Revs for the first time. We get to see Traumery's past with Gustang, and Wheeze is introduced, and also Enkidu. So this is a pretty solid arc overall. It has decent moments, but like not a lot of things I liked about it. So obviously the Enkidu stuff where we get to see his flashbacks and how he was raised, and we actually got to see Hidan, which was pretty cool. Traumery's backstory with Wheeze was very interesting, especially, you know, anything with past Great Warrior stuff is always good, and I liked all that stuff. And then, you know, the Revs reveal was really, really good, getting to see who these people are that are hiding behind the scenes. These are the people Urek are after. their dominance. Then in that same fight, we got to see Yama transform from getting the other Fang from Yakracha, and his form was really nice. But there's a lot of stuff here that like grinds my gears that I don't like. So this arc is weird because it has really, really good moments. It does. But it also has really, really bad moments. So, for example, the Rack moment. So, I know some people don't have a problem with Rack's transformation. I do. I'm sorry. I do. Rack hasn't had a power up in a long time. I think the last time was maybe on the Data floor when he was training using the rocks. Now, you can call the power up in the Baylor arc where he got the Ancient Spear, but it's only a spear he can throw once. Like, it's not like this significant thing. It helped during the White fight, but it was something that he kind of just took and wasn't necessarily like a training thing that made him stronger. It was a random transformation, and in the moment it doesn't kind of make sense because there have been moments throughout the entire season where they're being pressured and being hunted, because the whole thing behind the transformation with Rack is that he felt pressured and like he was being treated like he was being hunted. Well, okay, what about when Traumery was chasing you guys in the ship towards the Sprout? Beforehand, before they got there. You didn't feel like you were being hunted there? Were you literally being hunted by a family head? Now, granted, of course, he's going to get wiped out by Traumery or captured by Traumery if he tries to fight, but it makes more sense that you're being dominated and hunted by somebody of that level versus a branch head. Like, in that moment, it felt like there were just other significant moments where Rat could have transformed and helped. Like, even during the White fight, if he managed to transform somehow during that time, I might have felt better about it even towards then. But then you have to craft that fight where it doesn't look like Bomb's absolutely dominating, because still that fight's not one of my favorite fights, of course. But overall, the transformation was just him going kind of into rage mode and then not necessarily remembering anything from it. He kind of never heard or saw anything about it again. So it maybe become a thing as we go into season 4, but it was like a long time coming, and just in that moment, it just didn't feel right to me. And in the same arc, you have Kun, Rack, and Bomb trying to fight Dumas. I have a problem with that because Dumas is Regent level, top Regent level. Despite Kun and Rat getting buffs, they should not have been able to breathe in the same era as Dumas, especially since after the fact we found out that Dumas is way stronger than what we saw. You know, the fight between him and Bomb ended it with Bomb's win on a technicality, like on the way that Bomb figured him out and Dumas let him go. But we know that Dumas is world stronger because Bomb says so. So them being able to even compete or try to it's just asinine to think about. And then Kun using the Sweet Fish to kind of trap Dumas and destroy his body, get into his body, and then Kun dies, and then one of the worst things that could possibly happen happens, where again Kun dies for the second time in the season, and Bomb doesn't go crazy over it. Like, bro, how does that make sense? Bomb went crazy over White killing Prince and Arc Raptor, consuming their souls. But yet he saw Dumas standing next to Kun's dead body, and Bomb doesn't go Black Shensu mode. He kind of gets his ass beat and he wins on the technicality. It was just distasteful. And I know I brought this up in the last video, but seriously, it was one of the worst moments of the arc. Like, that fight was just not very, very good at all. Bomb was just getting help all over the place, whether it was from the Black March or from Leviathan. It just didn't feel like in that moment those should have been the people helping him. He should have exploded emotionally because his best friend's dead. Then you have the Killing Chess Piece game itself. Now, in the long run, the winning of the Killing Chess Piece game mattered in the end because Trom didn't have enough chess pieces to necessarily win the chess match. But the game itself was kind of silly, kind of stupid. I hated the concept of it. These people had pieces, these people were trading pieces, but the overall plot is that Enkidu / Belier have the Lobopia people on Gustang's side, so Traumery ultimately won't have any pieces in the end, and But then shit gets really complicated with Belier merging with Enkidu and Branches getting smoked by Dumas. It's just like the significance of the game itself started to matter less. And, you know, granted, even in the end of it, Gusting letting Bomb and the crew win. So it just felt like the effort of like Gusting changing his mind like was all for naught, you know? So I didn't like the concept of the game. It kind of diminished the chess match because it felt like the chess match would be a thing where everybody watches as it happens, and obviously whoever wins, you know, loses their immortality, blah blah blah. I didn't like it. And Kidu / Belier being in charge of it also kind of sucked because they didn't really do much. Ultimately, Belier being in control of it didn't matter in the end because he ended up just getting overruled by Gusting anyway. So in the moment, I didn't like it, and then in the end, I didn't like it. So these are just huge things during this arc that just like didn't matter to me. So yeah, that's why it's number 4. Now moving on to number 5 on the list is the Book War. Okay, the Book War. It's a lot of things here that just were boring and not good. But obviously the best thing about the Book War is Lustlek versus Urek, okay? Hands down, maybe number 1 or 2 best fight of the season. 2 top tier characters. Not only that, we got reveal of Lustlek. We finally got the reveal of Lustlek. Lustlek ended up being one of the best characters this season because of his big brain and how he helped V and how he knew everything, and his stopping Urek. Lustlek is goated, like absolute fantastic character. I'll get more into him, you know, in the character video, but their fight was pretty good. We got to see Gorgon's hands or Gorgon's eyes, Urek's basically fist that can delete almost anything, which we learned in the last arc, but we get to see Urek's dominance. Great stuff. I didn't like a lot of the art there, a lot of noise, a lot of too zoomed in, but overall it was a good exchange, good fight. Also in this arc we got Kieran's betrayal, which was also pretty decent and one I predicted, even though I got pretty much doubted and people thought that Kieran was a big brain somebody. It was nice to see, and you know, even though he turned out to be pretty much a coward and not about that work, and Lobanon ultimately humbled his ass, it was a good moment to see like, oh, like Lobopia really is the family of betrayals, and Traumarie, despite what you may think of him, has reasons to not like anybody because nobody's with him. We also got the Gusting and any stuff, and Traumarie being outside. So Traumarie obviously chasing the Shinsu black hole ships that are teleporting all over the place. And then, you know, we get to see Gusting and him have a conversation about not only the ships, but Gusting is very concerned about any, why she got captured. The Icarus stuff, we still get an answer for, which is displeasure. But Gusting answers some questions about the Fitbit and what it actually does. And obviously it unlocks the red dump. That was like the ultimate thing of it. And that got revealed later on. But that obviously was a key figure and a key factor of like the Revs being around and in and out the tower, which I also forgot, you know, in the last arc that they did get hunted down by seemingly Zahar's army, so I can't wait to see what's coming up with that. But that stuff was pretty good. But there are just too many things I don't like about this arc. So first off is Kieran running for Robodon made Kieran drop down a lot for me. Ultimately ends up looking like a coward. And then you have a lot of all the stuff with the book having like a keeper woman, and then it looks like it's Giskar, who ultimately ended up being absolutely fucking garbage and trash. Like one of the worst characters of the season. Like looked hype, took off his shirt, has his key in his body, looks like Yasracha and Yama can't beat this guy or they're gonna struggle. Nothing. Bro gets his head blown off and ultimately means nothing to the story. Just a waste of a character, like waste of hype. Who gives a shit? Then the ultimate like plot with the book, ultimately like Gusting just gets trolled with it. And while he does get to see like the memories that, you know, Bomb obviously consumed, it for the hype of the book to be what it was and Gusting not necessarily getting anything from it, it made the whole idea of it like pointless. And within that is that like Yasracha, right? Yes, Ratchet ended up taking like a lot of damage from Giscard, which Yas Ratchet was already on his deathbed from everything that happened fighting Traumery, but his death was kind of like rushed, and then even when he ultimately died, it was like a little bit underwhelming because ultimately you can kind of blame Giscard for killing Yas Ratchet in a way, but just his death was a bit underwhelming and kind of dragged out. I didn't like it. But other than that, there wasn't too much to like in this arc. There's also a lot of art in this arc that were like pretty suspect. Like even the lady who ended up being a bookkeeper, she wasn't really very well detailed. Richmont, who was running around with Dumas, his design compared to Dumas was like really plain. There's like some art gaps in a lot of this arc. Overall, that's why this season is ranked here. It's not really that great. It's all right. We move on to 6, which is the Baylord arc. Okay, Yama was hype. Okay, Yama with the hood, obviously you see it on the thumbnail, with the dog tooth. Yama, a Thug Slayer, legendary Thug Slayer, hype, okay? Because, we already got to see Karaka, and, like, at this point in the story, Karaka doesn't look that bad. He actually doesn't look like a bad character at this point. Karaka gets kind of worse as the story goes on, but, Thug Slayer, Yama's hype, dogs, we get to see all that, where Varagov came from. Hype stuff, like really, really hype stuff. And then, Kel Helm gets involved, so we get to see another member of Thug who, is kind of legendary, who fought with Zahard, ultimately got played by him, but I thought Kel Helm was a pretty solid antagonist for the arc. It's ultimately what brought them all together, with Bomb and Yama and everybody willing to fight against Zahard's army, ultimately at the end, and so that makes for a pretty solid plot. But there's parts of the plot that are absolutely dog shit, okay? So the whole thing with Doom's heart and the kid Louis and Ding Ding didn't care about it. Bomb's care for the kid Ding Ding and the heart was just like, we know Bomb's character, but all that shit about the K9 Tooth Festival, I didn't like it. Especially, like, ultimately, like, there was a lot of fighting. You guys realize there was a lot of fighting for the Yama's dogs? Like the K9s were sought after, not only by, like, Kel Helm and them, but it was also, like, Karaka was seeking them to help Bomb and them to get Jinsong, and then, like, Robodon also wanted to use them, and obviously they're important to Lobo Pia. It's like the dogs are so hyped up as like a race that people wanted to use, but ultimately like they're kind of ass. Like nobody really like, I don't give a shit about the dogs, like I really don't. And it felt like they were just like an overused concept, like an overused plot device throughout the entire season. So in the arc itself, I wasn't really feeling a lot of them. I thought the designs were pretty good, but getting to see the guy Gato, fight with the third commander, Kazin or Kozon, I forget his name, and then his daughter wanting to fight Varagar, all that shit didn't matter. All that shit ended up being ass. Like never seen half of these people ever again. So, and even reading it in the moment, it was just like, it's pretty decent, it's pretty cool. I thought like Paul showing up was pretty cool. Like, oh, there's a Yama brother. Then Doom was like pretty hyped up, like as a previous possible Slayer candidate, and then gets released and then fights with Yama, but then also merges with Yama after Bomb like stops Doom from like ultimately dying in the end. Cool, but like at the same time, like the kid that Bomb's trying to save, he still kind of just died, and then that was it. It was just like, okay, all this for what, bro? Like it was a lot of dramatics, if I may say. The most annoying thing about this arc was that like Bomb was just annoying as fuck. Like trying to save everybody, trying to play every side, and like you could tell that Karaka was getting annoyed with Bomb because it's just like, yo, like bro, you can't save everybody. Why are you trying to jeopardize the relationship with, when he tried to step to Yama over the heart of some kid that you just met like a day ago? It was just kind of like Bomb, if this ends up stopping you getting Jinsong, you're gonna regret this. So on top of that stuff, fights were like the transformation stuff was okay. I didn't necessarily hate it. Some of their abilities were pretty cool, but there wasn't like really great moments in this. There's a lot of annoying things that happen. So this is why this is ranked where it is. Last but not least, the Cat Tower / second defensive wall. So I don't really like these arcs very much. Again, these are two combined. There are a few good things, but ultimately there's a lot of shit that just wasn't good. So first and foremost, Because I know, actually, between this period, I don't know if you guys know this, but I know a significant amount of people who dropped Tower of God during this time. During the time of the Cat Tower, a lot of people dropped it. A lot of people dropped it because it diminished everything that happened beforehand. But let me get to the goods before I get to that. So Tromari's reveal was hype. Okay, great. Family head. The next family head we get to see next to Gustang. Cool design. Very dominating personality. Loved it. Loved Tromari. Loved meeting him. That's pretty much it for me, guys. I don't think there was much else to like here. So a lot of things happen, and a lot of these things have significance later on. Like, you know, obviously Bomb getting Leviathan, and then like Misheni meeting up with the boss. Like, we're not seeing the fruits of these labors like until later on. The first defensive wall was good. Okay, it was good. The plot was good. Getting the needle in was good. Even the beginning of the second defensive wall / Cat Tower, where the needle goes in and you got the one guy who's fighting with love, his slashes that kind of like paint drawings, really cool shit. Then Yas Ratchet changes the whole ball game and says, well, you want to fight him, and you want to fight him, and you want to fight him. How about I propose a game where you guys can fight the guys you want, or y'all can just line that shit up and just fight like men and fight who the fuck you want to fight. Bro, it diminished the hype. Like, this is a war. This is a war. The first defensive wall felt like a war. It's a war. You went from war to games. And to get to the place you want to be, you gotta beat the game. Like, bro, it was such a change of pace that was not needed. It was not needed. And then on top of that, you change the pace and you water it down by adding characters people don't care about. So I talked about this in the first video, where we got to see a bunch of people from Yas Ratchet's division, the Haracha guy, the guy in the chair, the girl with the ears. We got to learn so much about them and their backgrounds, where we spent literally chapters on these people and learning who they are, where they ultimately didn't fucking matter. They mean shit to the story. They mean nothing. Yas Ratchet, about his race and how he took care of them and they were using him. Bro, we spent the whole chapter learning about him. And he ended up just getting destroyed by Yuhan Song. Like, bro, who cares about that character? Then the guy who was using like the giant sea urchin things, who were controlling the animals and the dogs. We got to see Hats unleash his sword, which was a cool moment. But he helped Cha in the fight, dispelling all the stuff that was controlling the dogs. That was okay, but we got to learn like about that guy. Like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, who cares who that guy is? So you water it down with these characters we don't care about, and then we have to watch them play these games. Oh, we gotta watch Kun and Hockney play this water game with this giant crab. Like, who the fuck is this crab? Who's this Mr. Krabs? Like, why are we watching this? And then you gotta watch these people run around, chase mouses to teleport. Evankill was the only one who had like a noble mission, trying to like stop Lobo Pia from getting in. But you know, it just was not hype. Like, it was just not good stuff. Like, I hated watching those games. I know a lot of us did. Like, oh, take one step forward. Oh, the teleporter starts in 10 minutes. And then that ultimately leads to White versus Bomb, which in hindsight is not a terrible fight in the beginning. When Bomb loses his shit is when the fight kind of goes a bit south, because it felt like Bomb was dominating him. Bomb was dominating White, and White was saying that Bomb is stronger than me. But then Bomb chooses to go the route of taking the souls out of White, which then puts them in this weird stalemate where Bomb can't do it. Then Kun comes to help by using the sweet fish, and then Rack throws an ancient spear, and then it felt like Bomb can't take White one-on-one. Like, I would rather see Bomb win the fight that was so personal to him one-on-one than have them interrupted. And then cool, I'm glad White's character is not completely gone, but it diminishes the fight when you have people involved to help you in the end. So that's, and then obviously the buffs, and people hate the buffs. I didn't like the fight. Okay, Yas Ratchet versus Yama, it was okay, but it also ultimately underperformed because Yama ended up getting diffed, and this is when Yama's stock dropped. Yama's just legendary Thug Slayer stock dropped when he started to try to fight Yas Ratchet, and he was bloodied on the ground. And it was just like, okay, this is the legendary Thug Slayer. He's got diffed by a 5th Division commander. Like, what's so legendary about this guy? Like, he has ass beat, and then he's going to get up again and try to fight him again. And Doom ultimately comes in clutch with the Fang, but it it diminished Yama's like whole significance, where he was just kind of hyped up in the entire Baylor arc. Even though we saw Ratchet humble him in the beginning, but Yama act like nothing happened. He act like, oh, all that shit that was at the wall was a fluke. I'm gonna beat your ass. Then get his ass beat. Like just like undercooked as hell, man. So yeah, that's why I don't like the Cat Tower / second defensive wall. You know, obviously like Bolink versus Caliban was another fight that ended up in a stalemate, which was pre-hyped up. Oh, Caliban, oh, I'm gonna beat his ass. Oh, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna get my position back and kill him and blah blah blah. And didn't kill him. As soon as Traumaray showed up, like Bolink, do you guys realize? Go back and read when Traumaray showed up. When Traumaray showed up, it became the Yama, Ratchet, and Traumaray show. Ultimately, Bomb ended up showing up. Bolink and Caliban were in their presence the entire time. They were there, and they did not get involved. They didn't do anything. You would think they would at least help Traumaray, but they were just in the vicinity and didn't do. It's like the weirdest thing. Guys. The focus literally went from Caliban and Bolink fighting to Traumaray showing up and them just completely off the screen. It was just like weird as fuck, and it sucked. It was just not good. It was just like, bro, huh? Like they show up when they talk about damaging the teleporter and shit, but at that point it's just like, who gives a fuck? So yeah, I completely dislike that arc. Only hype about it really was Traumaray. So yeah guys, so that's it for me when it comes to talking about the arcs. You guys let me know what your favorite arcs are. I'll put a list here on all of the arcs if you just need a reminder of which ones there are, and I'll also put the numbers on where I number them, where you can count which arc when it starts. And you guys rank them, let me know what you think about it. Put a little synopsis down there why you think this is the best or this is the worst. Now it's time for the characters, okay? And Season 3 has had an exciting amount of characters introduced. So this is why it gets compared to One Piece a lot with how many people, and sometimes it is hard to keep up with and remembering who is who, especially if you were, reading it during the hiatus during Season 3. There are a myriad of good characters, and everybody has who they like. But for me, I'm going to mention 4 characters in 4 different categories that start with good characters that were good for Season 3, those who need work, and then those who were bad. So I'll name all the characters for each category so you guys know what I'm talking about beforehand, and understand that I can't add as many characters as I want to, only because I can't make this extremely too long for you guys to like consume. The 2 previous parts were 40 minutes, and if I name and talk about every character and that I didn't like and liked, we would be here all day. So, for the characters that were good for Season 3, in my opinion, are Traumaray, of course, Gustang, of course, Dumas, and Ratchet, okay? Don't sleep on Ratchet. He had one of the best stories throughout Season 3, if you ask me. Then we got characters that need work, okay? It's some of the main crew, okay? So, it's Bomb, it's Rack, and Dorsey, and then we have Rachel. They all need work in my opinion, and I'm going to get into specifics on why I think this. Those are those guys. Then characters that I think were a waste, had too much time, didn't contribute as much as we may have thought they could have. Darwin, number 1. 2, Enkidu. 3, Belier. And 4, Kira. Those are all characters I think that were either bad characters, have some bad stuff about them, and honestly, we could have done without in the parts that they were relevant. I'm going to start with the good stuff, okay? The characters that were really enjoyable, that played their roles, that had some significance. So, Dumas. Okay, Dumas, I think, is a Season 3 favorite. I don't know anybody who dislikes Dumas, okay? I'm telling you guys this as a simple character and for a simple analysis of him. Every character introduced in any story that you read does not have to be super complicated, have a super duper background. If the character played their role in a way that made sense, that also contributed to the story, that also makes them look good in certain points, then that can be considered a good character. I think Dumas fulfilled his role perfectly. Even though the one gripe I have is him letting Bomb go, even though it was kind of like, no,
a bit of a plot armory thing, especially when you tell us that, hey, Dumas is actually way stronger than what he actually is. I do have gripes with that, especially when he's supposed to be under Gusting's command. Besides that little bit, that does not overshadow everything Dumas contributed to the story. So first and foremost, Dumas had a badass introduction, okay? Introduced as a blue hole, which everybody loves the blue hole concept, right? Hidden rankers who are extremely strong, who just have not been active. Dumas is the austerity of Gusting. I don't need to explain the scriptures of Gusting, but Dumas is one of the scriptures. He stands for the austerity, which is basically a tank. He's basically a tank, if I put it in, a simple terms for people to understand. So Dumas is very prideful, very standstilly, very immovable object. He was a hunter this entire season, okay? He went and got the book. You saw how he diffed Yama, he diffed Jin Song, he made Karaka look like a baby. His badassery was shown when he was beating Fug half to death by himself. Then we seen this man challenge Traumary's dragon. The only other person who did that was kind of Yama and Yaz Ratcha. They didn't do it to the level of Dumas, okay? Dumas did it himself. He gave up his arms to do it and never complained. Like, badass as hell, man. Like, you can't put any smut in man's name. Like, nothing. Like, he just did what he was supposed to do to try to get to Bomb and crew and capture them. I also say I do love how Dumas kind of becomes not servant-like, but there's a little bit of, how can I say, you remember when he captured Bomb and he brought him to Gusting, and Gusting was pissed off that Bomb was kind of knocked out, and he kind of smacked Dumas, and it was like really a shock because Dumas is like this figure. Like, he's stomping out branch heads, he's doing whatever he gotta do, he's fighting Traumery, and Gusting can still kind of handle him in a way that's just like, damn. With that, and just to see Dumas's presence whenever he's on screen, it's just like, it's cool, I think in terms of his objectives and to where he got introduced and all the way to the end where we see him and Robodon have that weird exchange, like they want to smoke with each other or something. Dumas has just been solid. He's just been a very key character who also maintained like a badassery about him, right? Like, for example, Yama would be a good example of somebody who started off badass. Dog art, badass. Everybody fears Yama. Don't wake up Yama when he sleep. Legendary Thug Slayer. And then we see Yama fight Yas Ratcha and get destroyed. And it kind of takes the, the fire out of it a bit when you see him get handled like that after he has been hyped up for an entire arc. So Dumas didn't really get any of that. Bro still has his hype. Dumas is a W. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees with this. If you don't, let me know. I'd be surprised to know why you don't like Dumas. Now, let's get into Yas Ratcha. Yas Ratcha is a fantastic character. One of my favorite in the season. But it's not even about him being my favorite, why he's up here. He has greatness about him, okay? I just explained to you guys about Yama, okay? Yama, big figure, legendary Thug Slayer, blah, blah, blah. Yama's looking like kind of a guy that's hard to handle. He has this transformation that's supposedly so advanced that nobody's ever seen it. And like, it's just like, okay, Yama can probably tussle with like Caliban in them, right? And then we come across Yas Ratcha. And Yas Ratcha is just like this crazy look on his face that makes him look like really sickening. Like he's plotting in the back of his head, but you could also tell like there's some devious power behind that. And then you have his fixation on Yama. Yas Ratcha's not worried about anybody else. Everybody's been focused on Bomb and everything. Yas Ratcha is like the only like division commander or person who has had like the least amount of interest in Bomb. Like he was key focused on Yama. And obviously we know what the reason is behind that, right? And going into Yas Ratcha's background, he was friends with Wang Wang. They climbed the tower together. They were made together. And he loved Wang Wang. Like, we obviously, these aren't the terms that are used in the story, but I'm making it really basic for everybody to understand. Yas Ratcha loved Wang Wang, okay? To the point where he was willing to betray Traumery. And he's in Traumery's favorites. Like, Traumery adored the cat and allowed the cat to kind of have a little bit of power. Like, anybody would love to be in that position. Like, imagine Enkidu Imagine if Enkidu was around when Gas Ratchet was doing this. Enkidu would have smoked Gas Ratchet, bruh. Murdered this cat real crazy, right? He was willing to throw everything away to just be in Wang Wang's corner, to have them betray Traumery. That's how much he loved Wang Wang. And it's a weird relationship only because he's a character who shows that he kind of doesn't care. Like, he's the person who can't say, I love you, even though you know he loves you. And it's cool to watch in that way because he protected Yama and, you know, the Baylor brothers. He protected them. He let them escape in a way to show, like, one, he wanted to strike enough fear into Doom so that they would never return, and which Doom basically did. And it was for the sake of Wang Wang's kids. It's also like he never forgave Traumery for this whole thing against Wang Wang. Like, he never forgave him. He'd been researching his transformation, how to make it stronger, using Wang Wang's fang to ultimately find a way to defeat Traumery. Because when it came time to it, and he got exposed, he was going for the neck. Seeing him and then Yama kind of join sides to fight a family head was kind of like poetic in a way. And then Yama basically returned the same energy to Gas Ratchet. Like, as we saw Gas Ratchet die, Yama cared a lot. He had feelings for the guy. Like, he cared about him passing. You know, a lot of it was resentment, and obviously it's a complicated thing between Wang Wang and Gas Ratchet, but ultimately, looking between the lines, Gas Ratchet was on their team the entire time. And his character was so well done, the nonchalantness, especially when you look at his nature as a cat. Cats are exactly like that. As someone who's a cat owner, cats are like that, okay? They can be grumpy. They can seem like they don't want to be around you until they come up to you and basically beg you to pet them. Like, pet me now. Or feed me now. Or rub, cats have that nature where they seem like they hate everything when they're really attached creatures who really do care about you, but they have different ways of showing it. The nature of a cat placed into a character like Gas Ratchet was just beautifully done. You can even, you know, call Yama the dog who kind of became loyal to Gas Ratchet in a way. I mean, I think the whole book thing, while I didn't like them going for the book and finding and everything, their dynamic duo of, like, doing things together was kind of cool. It's like, look at Wang Wang's son and look at Gas Ratchet. It was, like, a really nice touch to see them, like, interact in the way they did. I think Gas Ratchet was a great character. I think his death was done pretty badly because it was a bit dragged out, and he was ultimately killed by Giscard. Like, I wonder how long he could have lasted. He may have lasted throughout the war if it wasn't for Giscard. I think that was kind of lame to take out a character like Gas Ratchet who had so much impact on Yama to die to a random Pobita high ranker. But overall, Gas Ratchet, fantastic character. I really enjoyed him. You guys let me know what you think about Gas Ratchet. If you really enjoy his character, if you liked him from beginning to end. I will say, before we switch over, Gas Ratchet is the one who introduced the Cat Tower, and I can never forgive him for that because the Cat Tower was ass. It's such an ass concept. I hated it. That doesn't take away from his character. So now it's time to get into the two big ones, all right? These are the characters that we learned the most about this season, and they obviously have an entire arc dedicated to them. You can almost probably put the whole season on these two characters. I'm going to start with Traumery, okay? Traumery lost the fight, ultimately to Gustang. But from the beginning of where we got introduced to Traumery, there has been an energy about him that just, like, you feel the dominance. So in rereading season 3, Traumery's introduction, it feels like the president just walked on and there's Secret Service everywhere. Everybody's bowing their heads. Everybody's not making the move. Granted, he's a family head. They all probably act like that when they're, and we've seen that same thing from Gustang from his family. But Traumery's was a bit different because his family doesn't have, how can I say, they don't see him that often. Like, when you look at, how many people talk about Traumery and the Lobo family head and how, like, they've never seen him. Like, even the branch heads barely get to see him. You understand that like his presence is a rarity, and he doesn't even talk directly to people. He talks through Kieran or through Robodon to other people. So, and it's not necessarily because he's like too kingly for them. It's Trom's nature. So, Trom's nature is one of the biggest things about this. He is not a human lover. He does not like people. So, the two closest people to him, as we learned, especially towards the end, is Robodon and Kieran, his sons, his two first sons that he seemed to care about. Those are the only two people basically that were allowed to speak to him. It's not like, he looked down upon his own family. He knows that they're insignificant creatures, as he would say, but it's more so man is a neat, okay? He's a guy who likes to sit in the house, in the corner, and not talk to anybody, okay? He just wants to relax, do what he does, and not be bothered. He doesn't leave home. On top of, obviously, his love for animals, the only thing he connects with, that's it. That's Traumery. So, it's easy for him to be kingly to insignificant beings because he already doesn't like them. Not because of him being a family head. It's just he looks down upon anything that's not an animal. But then we get into Traumery's background, okay? As I just said, Traumery doesn't like people. But his best friend, apparently, is Gustang. Climbing the tower together, these two were a dynamic duo. It's Traumery, it's Gustang. They seem like the two who are the weakest. And it doesn't mean strength-wise. It could also just be mentally, on how they assess and how they show their emotion. They could be the weakest too. But let's just say for now, it's both strength and the emotional aspect. These guys are the ones that look to everybody else to help them. And I don't say that like they actually look for it, but it seems like they're the ones that get bailed out. So with Traumery, we understand that he had difficulties climbing the tower because he didn't make friends with people. They didn't get along with him. Now, ultimately, he joined the Great Warriors group, and, he's one of those people. But even in that group, we don't know Traumery's relationship with the rest of them, which is going to be an interesting thing to see because we still got to get, obviously, Zahar and the family head's reaction to Traumery's death. We know what Edwin thinks of him, as we've seen in the flashback, that Edwin likes Traumery. He treats Traumery like a little brother who's scared to come outside. Obviously, Gustang is the one who understands him the most, and they have similar thought processes, but they're two extremely calculated guys who are calculated in different ways. It's kind of like watching Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg have a conversation about technology. They would have two different ideologies about technology, even though they are both guys who made it in tech and the internet. They'll have two different philosophies on how they think and how they handle things. We know that Traumery had a lover, Amwise. I would have loved to see more of Traumery's character before he became a family head, because as we come to understand, family heads have had their emotions basically reduced and repressed, and we see how Traumery reacted after he got his back. It took him out. Traumery died, understand guys, because he got his emotions back. And everything that he did, basically, he felt the feelings of them. I would have loved to meet the Traumery that Amwise knew, because that's the Traumery she fell in love with. The reason why she ran away, because he was going to become what he was. So I love the idea of that, because one, that gives us an idea of what to expect from other family heads. Traumery also, while his feelings were suppressed, he still felt anxiety. During the conversation, the chess match with Gustang, he's telling them, I didn't know you could still feel a feeling like that. To me, and I said this in my final review, that means to me that each family head is going to have an emotion that they can't repress. Because when you think about it, anxiety shouldn't be something a family head feels. But Traumery did. That's kind of what led him down this path. That's why he kind of killed Amwise, because of anxiety. So I wonder what Yearn has. I wonder what Edwin has. I wonder if there's a feeling that completely dominates them that they haven't left, and there's nothing they could do about it. Gustang seems to me to be somebody who's seriously unsure of himself. And we'll get into Gustang, but just to finish up Traumery, I think that his character was great for the story because he was a super villain. He didn't regret his actions because obviously of his emotions, but he's a man who, and I'm not using the emotions as a crutch to his character. I'm just saying the trauma that we came to understand and know was a very cutthroat guy who was devious as hell. I mean, all the terrible things he's done, marrying his own kids, breeding things, obviously the Laura sneeze stick situation is sick. Like, he's done a lot of sick, disgusting things, and that's why I don't like him as one of my favorite characters. He's not. I think he's a good character in respect to how he was written, but his nature and things that he's done make him like a disgusting person to me. But overall, for season 3, I think he was done really, really good. I said this already, and I'll say it again. The only regret I have for Traumery is not being able to see his reaction to V. I would really love to know what their relationship was, especially since V basically told Traumery, like, I know you're going to be alone, but don't worry, I'm basically going to send your friends after you soon, since you like to get lonely. That tells me that V knows Traumery and how he is. So I would love to see flashbacks on how they were. Despite that, Traumery is a great character, fantastic for season 3. It's unfortunate that he did die. I would have loved a little bit more out of him. And I would also love to have to see how he built his mothership, and I'm sad that we didn't get that either. But overall, Traumery is a super duper great character. If I'm giving like grades out, because I probably should at this point, Yash Ratcha is an A, Dumas is a B, Traumery A+ character. I just don't like his nature. And then lastly, I'll finish this part up with, is Gustang. So Gustang is fantastic. People don't like Gustang, and for a long time they didn't like Gustang because they didn't understand him. We finally got some background on him towards the end of the season. And Gustang is an extremely complicated character, more than I would have thought. Gustang's background is similar to Traumery's, how I already explained. He's more of the bookwork nerd, taking notes type of guy, okay? Like, he studies for a test and studies his notes. Traumery, in comparison, is the guy who looks at all the questions, looks at all the answers, probably memorizes half the shit. Those are two different types of smart. Gustang is complicated because of his inability to be decisive. I think that's what it comes down to when you look at his character. So through the fight with him and Traumery, Gustang was going back and forth on him deciding to kill Traumery. Like, it happened several times. It can be a little bit annoying when you're reading it in the moment because it's just like, bro, double down and do what you said you were going to do. But it also speaks to his character because if you look at his past, he was the same way. Oh, I don't want to punish Blossom. Even though my job is to punish the family heads when they fuck up, I don't want to punish Blossom because Blossom's like my wife. I love her. And this is destroying her. And I shouldn't punish her because I want to help her through this. I'm conflicted because I'm supposed to, but I don't want to. I'm unsure what to do. So what if I can do things around it? I don't know. What if we can destroy the evidence that this ever happened? That makes Gustang such a weird character because he's somebody who's claiming to stand on business, to stand on justice, the one who's not going to move. That's when the austerity comes in. But he did move and shake. And it just goes to show how human he is. And I wonder during that time how repressed his feelings were when he became a family head and punishing Blossom. Because obviously, and I'm not sure at the top of my head right now what feeling you would call that, but whatever that feeling is that makes Gustang so indecisive is the one that dominates him. So how I said that Traumery is dominated by anxiety, whatever is causing Gustang to be unsure of himself is the feeling that dominates him. Whether it's confidence, whether it's love for the people, whatever it is, it dominates him and it clouds his judgment. With that being said, he has that similar attitude of Traumery where, while I don't know what emotion dominates him, I think like love is really a huge part of it. And it could be his nature as like even just being a man, because obviously he cares about Blossom, but we come to find out that he cares a lot about Annie. And I think we all kind of understand that a huge part of where this war and why he's taking revenge on Zahar and group is because of the Annie incident. I have no doubt in my mind, if Annie was never sealed and Gustang wasn't kept out of it because he doesn't know where she is, Gustang may have never betrayed them. He may have never, started this uprising. I'll say that going forward in season 4, I hope we do still get to see a lot of Gustang. I know he's not in good standing right now. People are doubting his power. One, because he didn't have a good showing in the fight with him versus Traumery, but there's also what Adori did, which is pull up and destroy his mothership, which some people think that it's a flex and she thinks that she can take him. I don't think so. And I don't think Gustang was on that ship, obviously. I do hope that he stays relevant. I do hope we get to see a lot more of him. I would like to see his interactions with Blossom. I hope he finds any. But Gustang is a character. I'm not going to give him an A+, but he's an A character. I think he can definitely reach A+ with no problem. But his relationships matter, and I hope we get to see those. So, yeah, those are my 4 characters, guys. So, Yazracha, Traumery, Gustang, and Dumas. Really great characters for season 3. Now, we're going to go into the characters that need some work, okay? This is going to be a little bit controversial because I know everybody doesn't necessarily agree with this. Their Bomb has obviously the biggest fan base because he's the main character, but I'm going to start with Bomb. Bomb has been annoying this season. His decision making has been very questionable. It's bothersome to me in the story. I'm going to point to a couple examples of this. Early on in season 3, Bomb decides to challenge Yama. So you remember the whole point of Karaka and Bomb going to go see Yama is to ask Yama to join them, obviously, in the fight to rescue Jinsong. We're going along with the plan, and it may have worked out perfectly fine if Bomb didn't decide to take up for Ding Ding. So Bomb wanted Ding Ding to live. Because of this, he challenges Yama in a bet. We see Karaka flip shit over this when it's done. Like, why would you challenge Yama? What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you jeopardize everything for some kid that you literally just met 2 chapters ago against a legendary Thug Slayer who has the troops that can help us? Now, we know Yama may have not helped them or whatever, but I don't think Bomb doing that changed anything. I think things still could have worked out the same way they did, even whether Bomb challenged them or not. But it's the decision making to do that. Do you realize that this is all for Jinsong? You care about Jinsong? Now, what if Yama decides to pack you and Karaka up because you wanted to get smart? There have been decisions being made like that throughout the season for Bomb. Another one, the controversy in choosing to fight Dumas. He said that he has to do this. He's going to regret running away. The fight was a bit ass-pulley because Dumas wasn't really fighting his full power. He lost because Dumas' arrogance in his nature on what he is. He's austerity. He can't be moved. He can't be touched. Bomb got under his skin. That's basically what happened. And Bomb ended up rescuing his friends, which ultimately let him win. It's throwing salt in the wound when you get told that, man, I could tell Dumas is still way stronger than what I've shown. He could have really beat my ass. It's not a good feeling. Even Bomb's decision to choose to fight Dumas in the beginning with Kun and Rak is a terrible decision. Those two are regulars. I don't care about their power-up. I don't care about their utilities. Dumas is in the top 30 at least. Rak and Kun don't even... Rak and Kun should not be able to breathe in the same Shinsu density as Dumas. And this is where, people have a problem with the high rankers in the high ranker system, because these guys shouldn't be able to stand next to him. But I just think for the story, it's bad that you have 2 regulars, because despite Rak and Kun getting buffs, they're still regulars, bro. I don't care about brain power and all that shit. They're still regulars, bro. While Bomb is high ranker level, he's not regent level. So it's like you can tell the danger of Dumas fighting him, but you still choose to fight him. Why? Because you know that Dumas is not going to kill you. I don't like that decision, and I don't like it being made. Last thing I really dislike about Bomb's character, another similar thing. Bomb being upset at Enkidu for wanting revenge against Traumery. Bomb lectured Enkidu about Enkidu being selfish about wanting to be with Traum and not necessarily wanting to be Trom's friend. While I don't love Enkidu's character, Bomb, who the fuck are you to tell Enkidu for a murder he didn't commit and locked up and sealed, and then wanted revenge because all he wanted to do was be next to next to Traumarie and he did everything Traumarie asked him to do, who are you to tell him that he's a terrible creature or a terrible person or terrible for his line of thinking? Like who, seriously, who are you to tell him that? Out of everybody, it's like you're defending Traumarie's bullshit because you know what Traumarie did. You know how Traumarie manipulated everybody in this situation. You know what Traumarie is. But you're lecturing Enkidu. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, not too far from that whole situation, you know, when Bomb decided to be Lobo Pia Bomb. Okay, Lobo Pia Bomb, it's a joke. Him being upset at Gustang because Belier and Kidu stole the piece, and he's telling Gustang, well, that piece belongs to Miss Ann Dorsey. Okay, why do you care? Because it's hers. Bomb's not a bad character. He's never been a bad character. He's the main character. He can't be a bad character. Bomb has had plenty of badass moments this entire season, but a lot of his choices have been very questionable. His morality is weird and fluctuates because he looks over certain shit, and then his reasoning is never good enough. I would like to see a more decisive Bomb, a more headstrong Bomb. I hope this thing with the V helps him with that. You know, it's already bad enough that he's super powered up and he outclasses his friends, but I hope that in season 4 we get to see a better version. Now moving on, we're gonna go with Rack. Rack, for a long time, has just been comedy relief. He had significance getting that spear from the Baylords brothers, using it to, you know, help defeat White, which I still don't love. And then Rack gets a power-up where he transforms and defeats a branch head. I'm sorry, it's Rack time. I did the math for it. Since Rack had a power-up to himself, at this point, it's almost 8 years. Bro needs love to his character. It's time for Rack to stop being the comedy, because giving him a badass moment in defeating a branch head does not help, in my opinion. We have been waiting for a long time to see Rack be relevant, because Khun has no problem being relevant. Khun can use his brain to outsmart rankers in situations, and he has all season. Now granted, Khun has some get out of jail free cards where he died, which I don't like, but the reason why Khun is not on this list because he's using what he is. He's a smart guy who uses his brain to outcalculate and outdo people. And even watch him further develop his lighthouse, like using stuff like Enacor and stuff, has been cool to see because it helps him with his utility. Rack is not a utility character. Rack is somebody who's supposed to be strong, who's supposed to be a different breed. He's a different race. He's been ignored for too long, and a random raging power-up to me is not the way to go about it. It's time to give Rack some love and to find out where he is and what he comes from. So I hope he gets that in season 4 because he really needs it. It's bad enough we have to deal with Tiny Rack. Since you put a spotlight on him towards the end of the season, please see you work on the man. And Dorsey is a beloved princess. A lot of people who read Tog love Ann Dorsey. But I swear to you guys, Ann Dorsey has literally been one ability this entire season, and it's Bong Bong. Bong Bong has been probably the most overused ability in any series that probably came out last year. Bong Bong, Bong Bong, Bong Bong. And Dorsey has had no significance. She had one chance to be. If she would have 1v1 Lelyle in the hotel, oh my God, we would never have this conversation. I hope if Siu comes out with like a letter to us about mistakes that he made during season 3, that has to be one of them. Because Ann Dorsey has needed a 1v1 for a long time. I think her last one was the Name Hunt Station where she fought her. She has been trained by Yuri since then. It would have been nice to see her humble Lelyle. Show out for Bomb, show out for your man. But when you have her only being able to escape and travel and escape with one ability, one trick pony, devastates her character to the Ann Dorsey is in a fucking dumpster right now, like, to put it simply, because that's the only thing she's been able to do, to the point where she's trafficking rankers. Like, she's trafficking rankers in it. She's helping Belier with it. Like, it's getting ridiculous. And Dorsey needs some serious work. Hopefully season 4 is a princess arc where we get to see her be significant. But I swear if we have another season of just bong bong, Ann Dorsey does not deserve bomb, and she will never crawl out of the hole she's in right now. Last but not least, Rachel. I love Rachel's character. Rachel has created a hate train that's super rare in any series ever. There are so many series where there are women characters who are hated, but they're not hated for being devious. They're usually hated for being fucking dumb or useless. For example, Sakura. People hate Sakura because she's dumb and she betrayed Naruto and was still loving on Sasuke. What's another character? I'm going back to Naruto. Tenten. People hate Tenten because Tenten's fucking useless. Rachel created the biggest amount of hate for a female character that I've ever seen, next to Gabi from Attack on Titan. She is smart, almost smarter than Kun. She's calculated and she knows what to do to get where she wants. That was not shown in the slightest in season 3. Rachel has not been significant at all. Throughout the season, rereading the season, Rachel has been useless. She's hanging out with Po Bidao. She has this 3 wishes, which she's never used. She's probably never going to use. I don't even care about the 3. With like 3 wishes, it's just a joke at this point. Season 3 did her no justice. It didn't give her no cool points. It didn't do nothing for her character. She didn't discover anything. She didn't get a power up. Like, nothing happened to Rachel. And Rachel is the second main character, guys. She's been ignored the entire season, basically. And I hate that for her. I think Tower of God is so much better as a story when Rachel is really involved. Because she knows things. She knows people. She knows how to manipulate. She has Emily. I wish she mattered more, this Po Bidao Lobo Pia war, but she didn't really hold no significance. Even when it looks like she's connected to the Revs, we don't get to see her interact with the Revs, bro. It's like right now, it's like looking at like Steph Curry this season. Like if you watch basketball, you know that Steph Curry's not having his best season. It's like watching that. Like, bro, what's going on? You not hitting them threes the way you used to. Your team not as good as they used to. Like, it's literally what Rachel and her folks look like right now. So I don't have to speak too much of her and her past. We know how good Rachel has been to us, but CU has not shown her any love season 3. So she needs probably more than any of the 3 I mentioned before, maybe close to Dorsey. Those 2 might need the most love. Now we go to the bad stuff. Stuff that I think suck, okay? These characters suck, and not only did they suck, their reasoning sucked, their background sucked. I think the story could have progressed the same if they didn't. Let's start with fucking Darwin. Darwin is a letdown. I liked Darwin, gang. I liked her a lot. We dedicated an entire arc to her. Wall of Peaceful Coexistence. Darwin, who was in the Hidden Grove with Cha, the princess who can manipulate and use spells by her flower field, sealed based on a deal with the family heads. Okay, she gets released. She's looking powerful. She's using spells. She dies. She dies. What impact did she have to the story? Literally nothing. We could have gotten here without Darwin, guys. We could have got here without her. What'd she do? Help Karaka and the Nest catch a mouse? Nothing. Would she help Lobanon destroy a warp gate? Nothing. Honestly speaking, Darwin is a character who could have literally not existed and nothing would have changed. I go back to what I've been saying. Cha and Darwin are high rankers. They were in Bomb's camp. They are characters that could have helped him become better because his friends are too weak. So what do? You add 2 temporary high rankers that can be on his team for now and help him progress. Cha's still that. Darwin is not. Darwin seems to be dead. I can't believe we dedicated an arc to her just for her to die at the end of the season. Waste of time. Waste of a character. I agree with everybody. I hate Darwin too. Kieran sucks. And this one may be a little controversial. Kieran has a little bit more to do with the story than Darwin does. Obviously, he's the second in control of Lobopia, so his position is solidified. But his betrayal was ass. He betrayed his own family, got confronted by his brother, got his ass beat, Robodon twice, needed help from Armstrong, the astronaut. Kieran did nothing. Like, even him showing up on the battlefield like he was cool, like it was a grand entrance, bro showed up like he was Captain America and didn't do anything, bro. But yet, he was to become a family head. His reasoning to Robodon on why he's betraying his father is because the love his dad used to have, he didn't have it anymore. And we could assume now that the character he used to show that love to was Anne Wees. Guys, isn't Kieran the only one that Traumaray talks to? Doesn't he communicate everything through Kieran? Isn't that enough attention? You get a lot of attention from your dad. You have a lot of pull with him. And as we come to understand, Traumaray said he was happy when he had his first 2 kids. Kieran's ass. Like, in all honesty, besides him having a solidified position, after he betrayed Traumaray, bro really didn't have no significance to the story that wouldn't have changed anything. Robodon just still got to the battlefield and not fought him. Nothing, literally him trying to kidnap Bomb and everything, none of that shit worked out. And Kieran's terrible. Didn't show me anything that's valuable to his character, and he got too much screen time to be as ass as he was. And Kido sucks too. Guys, tell me what impact, and I'm talking to the comment section now. Tell me what impact Enkidu had to the story ever since he got released from his cage. We could have learned about Enkidu's background without him getting released. Enkidu taking over Garuru and Beliar's body did what? Did what exactly? What exactly did they do? They killed Tiara? It still wouldn't matter. Beliar's overall plan to trap Traumaray using his family members to betray him, that had nothing to do with Enkidu. It didn't matter if Enkidu or Beliar told him that. Literally all Enkidu did was save Beliar. Enkidu had so much potential to be more. Do you guys remember when Enkidu was released? He tried to capture Gustang. He tried to take over his body. You remember the theories that we had about him at that time? Oh, what if Enkidu takes over Bomb's body and tries to fight Traumaray because he wants revenge? Why is that not a good plot? Why is that not something that was tried? He takes over Beliar, a failed ranker who's not strong. What did it do for Beliar? It didn't do anything for him. He didn't fight with it. He ran from Ann Dorsey. It wouldn't have made a fucking difference for real. Like, it really did. It really wouldn't have. Beliar could have still talked to Rachel. He could have still asked him and Hayura for help. They still could have tried to prevent Ann Dorsey from getting to the chess game. Like, bro, it meant shit. And Keto is shit. And that's why when he got bopped by V, it meant nothing. Did he help V come to life? Sure. Was that already happening throughout the season? Yes. Did he trigger it? Okay. Wow. Enkidu was used as a trigger point. That's it. As much screen time as he got, and this is where I'm going to, he did not deserve the amount of attention he got. I don't care about Hedon and all that shit, bro. I don't. Because none of that shit fucking matters. It didn't matter in the end. And he didn't do anything with what he was and with the abilities that he had. Do you think that we could have got to where we got in the story without Enkidu being part of it? My answer is yes. My answer is yes. You could have still got there without him. Enkidu's ass, I'm sorry. Last but not least, Beliar. Literally the same thing I just said about Enkidu, it could have happened to Beliar. Okay, Beliar set up the Killing Chess Piece game. Cool. You could have had any other character do that. You could have had Tiara do that shit. He set it up as kind of like a crash out method to take out Gustang. But you know how you make that shit invalid? Do you know how you make that invalid, guys? At the end of the game, when it's all over, Gustang tells him, we're giving them the chess piece, we're going to let them win the game. That's how you invalidate Beliar's entire effort the entire season. In that single moment that Gustang stopped him and let Kun and crew win, that's how you invalidate every effort that he put in throughout the season. I would be as mad as he was. As mad as he was at Gustang, he is justified. Because you made him super insignificant. I remember when he was introduced, he seemed like such a cool character. Even if with him being weak, him having the connections and seemingly the smarts, he seemed cool. But I'm telling you guys, think about these characters I named. Could we have gotten to the point in the story without them being the ones to do it? Like, at least with Ann Dorsey, when I bring her up, Bong Bong has been relevant to getting people to parts in the story that matter. Helping people escape. Helping people do certain things. Bro, no, it wouldn't have worked out. I mean, at least we could have got some background on where he came from or how the Red Light District is related to him, but nothing. Imagine being the boss and saying, oh, we're going to leave it up to Beliar to do it. Those are my 4 bad characters, guys. All those people, I swear to you, as much screen time as they all got, they could have not been in the story, and I think we still could have ended up here in a good way. So, you guys let me know in the section what you think. Come up. So now it's time to talk about factions, and this will probably be my favorite video, because factions are probably one of the coolest things about Tower of God. I think we all can agree, like joining a different family or even like a rogue group is like such a cool concept, because there's so many different characters within it, since, you know, the tower has been around for literally thousands and thousands of years. So they've built up their strength. There's different levels to who's who. There's a bunch of different cool groups that are involved throughout the season. So we're going to talk about each group, how they were affected, what I expect from them going forward, and also how they finish season 3. So the factions I'm going to talk about are Zahar's Empire, and you know that Zahar's Empire is kind of like the big group, and under the umbrella is the 10 great families. So you can kind of put them under there, but I'm not going to talk about like all of them. I'm just going to talk about like the Zahar Empire. Lobopia will be a separate faction that I will talk about, because they have some very interesting things, obviously with Traumari's death. Hobidao family, Fug, the new group, the Revolutionaries, and last but not least, Walkie Songs. With those being the groups, I think the first one to talk about is the newest one, which is the Revolutionaries. Now, they are in a very controversial state right now, because people do not like the Revs, okay? People did not like how they finished. They kind of ran between the tail and their legs with Urek hunting them. And to be fair, guys, like, I think you guys are a little bit too critical of them, because it's Urek Manzino. Like, bro, like, what are we doing here? Like, he is like literally the top guy next to Zahar. Of course you're gonna run from him. Like, I get that these people are claiming to be the new family heads, but they aren't there yet. Like, obviously they didn't plan to fight him, so maybe they weren't necessarily ready to deal with a threat like that. If you're making the claims that you're making, being we're gonna take over the 10 family heads, then you need to have that level of strength and be ready for stuff like that. I am gonna come a little bit of slack with, like, you know, them being actually hunted by him is kind of insane. And yeah, anybody would be caught off guard if that guy attacked you all of a sudden. So the Revolutionaries, if you need just a quick refresher, are a group of people who want to replace the 10 family heads, okay? And apparently within this group, there's possibly a member of every family in this group. So for example, you can kind of say that Macheni is kind of a part of the Revolutionaries, because we saw her interact with the boss, and they kind of seem like they came together with a plan for something. Also, you know that like Kieran's a part of it, and a couple of Pobidao members who also seem to be kind of a part of it. So there seem to be maybe different people from different families that are also within, from families we haven't seen yet. So possibly another Kun family member, maybe a Ha family member, maybe two Perry. Like, we don't know. Obviously we haven't explored the rest of the families, but there is a possibility of that. Now, the major group that's kind of running things are the people from the Red Dump. And if you haven't seen my Red Dump theory video, please look up at the card right here. Check it out next if you would like to see it. People from the Red Dump seem to be the ones at the forefront for the time being. So just a quick refresher on the Red Dump people. The Red Dump was the space that was locked by the 10 family heads, where they dumped a bunch of people, memories, beings, all type of stuff into this locked box. And this box is supposedly, if you haven't read the translations from officially from Webtoon, it's the space in between floors. So if you think about, climbing up a step, look in between your step, that space is kind of where you could think that there's a hidden group in there, okay? So that's where they dumped and locked a bunch of people in, and that was the whole point of the bracelet that Mustang stole off the Hell train from the data floor, got Rachel to bring to him, was to unlock the people from the Red Dump. And we don't know the whole history behind how that happened. Did he actually release them? We don't know any and all of that stuff yet. But those are the people who are kind of at the forefront, because we got to see them on the battlefield. So the first approach that we got from the Revolutionaries, if you guys don't remember, is from Lobopia Yule. Okay, remember Lobopia Yule, and he came with the machine face kind of guy. They approached Bomb real early in season 3, okay? Yule attacked Bomb, trying to test him, and Bomb packed him up real easy. That's what Yule said. He had a couple friends that he had hostage. You gotta let me basically help you or follow you around, because I've kind of been ordered to do this. And going forward, then we kind of see them help Kun and Bomb's group, with the Yama stuff. And then the next interaction I believe we get is we get to see a flashback of the boss. So the boss is seen talking to Darwin all the way back in Genesis, telling her about Bomb. So this is one of the coolest things about like the boss that we know about, is that he seems to have been around for a long time. So this is what I mean, where we don't know how long the people from the Red Dump have been out. If some of them like slipped through or escaped, we don't actually know. But he's been around for a long time, and he actually gave Darwin the news about like Bomb and being sealed and what the proper plan was. He also talked to Cha the same way. So the Revolutionaries isn't necessarily a new group. They have just kind of been hidden in the shadows, kind of like how Thug has, but we know that Thug's a little bit more public. But the Revs, like, their existence hasn't been known, and it has only been officially confirmed like in this season. So from then on, of course, we see the boss in the Suspendium running with the snake hatchling. He got packed easy by the boss, and they were there to assist Bomb on getting Leviathan out. Now, y'all, if you haven't seen my stuff, y'all should know that how I feel about Leviathan and how weird it was that Leviathan wasn't necessarily used in the overall plot of Traumary's death. Kind of seems just like a buff right now, which I don't necessarily like. We're not going to get into that, but he was there to help basically get Leviathan out. And of course, before that, we do see the interaction between Machete and the boss, as I mentioned before, and I don't necessarily remember if or whatever they talked about. And I know it wasn't shown, but I don't know if we necessarily got to see anything there that we could foresee that may have been mentioned to Machete that would have maybe preluded to the war or anything. But I don't think there was anything there for us to like make any assumption. Now, jumping completely forward, now we get the Revolutionaries kind of, you know, interacting in between the stuff in the war, because we know Kieran's a part of it, but we didn't learn that until Kieran betrayed his family and kind of tried to capture a bomb and failed. And then we move on to the actual Pobeda-Lobopia war. They all kind of expose themselves. We get to see the boss in this armor, which I know a lot of people like. I didn't think it was that cool, but we get to see him. And then we get to see some new members later, you know, either further on in the season, towards the end. The girl using electricity, the girl with the plug, Lady Ratna Gra, who seems to be one of the people who wants to replace the family heads. Then we have the astronaut guy who seemed to cut Lobadan's tree bark open with no problem. We're getting to see a couple of the revolutionaries, like the top brass. Now, the sad part is that they got completely like sideswiped and, you know, completely shit on by Urek, who shows up on the battlefield and immediately chases them. And they had like a very, very good effect on the war, because they were like a third faction that kind of got involved and like didn't necessarily pick a side and were doing damage to everybody. And, you know, power scaling them, we can kind of infer that at the least corpse commander level, because of the way they handle with Yama. So Yama gets his buff, and now he's, you know, at the top of his game. And Yama's like destroying, you know, Prowse's lighthouse shield. And then that's when they had the, you know, the electricity girl, you know, who one-tapped Darwin. If we're talking about like the grunt soldiers, kind of the plug and electricity girl, I would kind of rank them at maybe branch head or stronger, but I would give them a little grace to say a little bit stronger. So the group overall seems to be made up of a bunch of different people. And I liked their showing until like they had to kind of run away, because I mean, they're getting hunted by the top guy. They made a good showing. I think they made a pretty good impression. You know, obviously they're planning in their plots, because, you know, we found out that Ratnagra actually knew about Yama, so they know about people. They seem to be very prepared for wherever they're going. So I gotta give them a little bit of credit there. Do I expect to see them in the future? Absolutely. Like the boss or the captain, who was able to kind of tell the future, which we have no idea how, in what way he can do that. But anybody with that type of ability is obviously a threat. If his is on the same level as Zahar's, because he's supposedly a Zahar clone, then it's a big problem. But it's kind of hard to tell, because towards the last chapter, we get to see that they actually get hunted down, and wherever they teleported to, Zahar's army is waiting. So that's one of the most exciting things to see, you know, when season 4 comes back, because the Revs got cut off to wherever they were going by Zahar's army, and we don't know what corpse that is, but there's a massive fleet waiting for them, and there might be a scrap going on there. So as far as season 4 goes, I think we absolutely get to see a lot more of the revolutionaries. There are people implanted in different families. We get to see them. I don't think whatever Zahar's crew that popped up to stop them or whatever, I don't think they're going to be the ones to stop them, because I think they have a much, much larger role to play. As far as the Revs go, they were basically introduced to us this season. I think they are a nice, not even third party, because I kind of put Walkie Song as a third party, but they're a nice like fourth or fifth party group that kind of exists, and they're still new to us. So Fug has had a very up and down season, and I hate to say it because I really do like Fug, but people have had some harsh criticism, and it's because of the Slayers, okay? The Slayers have not been slaying. Yama, I think, looked good towards the end of the season. Karaka never popped back up after getting diffed by Dumas, and then all we really had after that was kind of Leslek, who carried. I mean, we should be making a meme about Leslek on how he carried his faction. Like, it's absolutely insane how he put them on his back and saved the reputation of Fug. Then we also got introduced to a number of elders this season, which have been really, really cool to see. Obviously, Kel Helm, Sophia, and then Garnek more towards where we get introduced to Leslek. These are all like really cool elders and seem to be really strong, especially Garnek. I think we kind of slept on him a little bit because he did diff a Poe beat out branch head just like with no problem, with no issue. So at the very least, he's got to be past or in the middle of maybe Corpse Commander level. But just going through Fug's interactions this season, obviously Bomb is kind of like his own little thing within Fug, but Karaka and Bomb are the ones who approached Baylor Yama in the first arc to get Yama to help them attack and go save Hajin Song. So Fug is kind of like intricate early on in the season with Karaka, and I actually like Karaka early on because he's really like in it with Bomb. They're really trying to go rescue Jin Song. They're getting to know each other. They're getting to work together. And then this kind of turns into like a Fug beef in a way because Kel Helm pops up. And I like Kel Helm. I think his ability is really cool. Not only tell the future, but to teleport people. Obviously, Bomb stole the ability, and it's become a real useful ability to Bomb now. But I thought that Kel Helm was like not a terrible character, and I know he kind of gets a bad rap because he got played by Zahar. Like, because Kel Helm can tell the future, but Zahar can tell it to a way greater scale. So he manipulated Kel Helm's future sight himself, but it's Zahar. Like, if Zahar didn't exist, Kel Helm's ability would be OP as shit. But it's Zahar. So, and granted, I love Zahar. I cut Kel a little bit of slack. He didn't necessarily believe in Bomb and Yama, and he wanted to use the forces for his own needs. He came around using his future sight to kind of teleport Yama to the wall of peaceful coexistence, and that's kind of how the arc kind of transformed into the next arc. And then he becomes an important piece to helping Bomb and them when they go to rescue Jin Song. And then you go look at the people who are involved in the first defensive wall. It's a bunch of Fug people. Like, you have the elders, you have people who are also extended. We obviously get to see Sophia Tan step in. After Bomb beat that Ranker, people started to have faith within Fug, so they were willing to help Bomb. And I thought that was kind of cool, being that Bomb had a lot of circulation and doubt around him. Was he this strong? Is he actually for Fug? And we know he's not, but this all plays into the overall plot towards the end of the season, and which is why I think, like, early on, it's really cool to see, because Leslek is, but we don't even know about Leslek there at that point, but he's in the background, and obviously he's just letting shit happen, right? A couple things that did happen throughout the season are a little bit shaky, because there seems to be a little bit of a connection between Fug and the Revolutionaries. I don't know if you guys necessarily agree with that, but we see Jin Song, when they go to rescue Bomb in the hotel, Jin Song makes contact with Garuru, who is also, involved with the Revolutionaries. Now, we also get to see, towards the latter end, the reason why, like, the Revs kind of escape is kind of that Leslek got involved. Do you guys think that there's a connection there? Like, do you think, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing? Or do you think that they kind of just, like, link together for certain situations? I'm kind of peeping that I'm not exactly sure. That's just a point I just literally thought of. But you guys let me know if you think like Fug and like the Revs may low-key be working together. And just going back, we did get to meet some new members of Fug besides the Elders. Robbie, who was in the hotel arc, is a Fug member, and she was very helpful to Bomb to helping him escape, obviously in connection with Jin Song. And I do like her character, so I do hope we get to see her again. Then we kind of transform into the book part. Now, the book part is a little bit wonky because Fug seems to be trying to get the book. And I don't know if they're just going to use it as like a bargaining tool against Gustang. That part, I don't necessarily understand why they were so involved in it, right? Because it was Pobito versus Fug in that moment. Like, Fug is trying to steal the book and kind of use it. Now, I don't know what this means. Maybe Lustlike takes it and gets information from it. Have you guys ever thought about that? Like, I know a lot of you who think deeply within the plot, we don't notice these things, like, but this is the reason why we do reviews and that we look back at things. Jin Song, Yama, Karaka, then Kel Helen popped up with I forget the Red Witch girl that he's with. They all kind of got into a fight with Dumas and Richmond to get the book. So I wonder what the goal for Fug there was. I'm not exactly sure, but do you think that maybe it was just going to be a bargaining chip for Lustlike? Speaking of the man Lustlike, so this is where Fug basically becomes the Lustlike show, okay? Lustlike starts to carry his team on his back. Now, obviously the biggest thing, Lustlike versus Urek. Fantastic fight. I love Lustlike's character. I like his fighting style. Everything is cool about the man. Then, you know, he kind of disappears after they fight, and we don't see him for a little while, and then he pops back up in the key moment where Urek is getting directly involved in the war. Then also, when Bomb transforms into V, he's already there, like, waiting and understanding what's going on. Oh, that looks like my master. Master, let's go, we're getting out of here. Takes Bomb's back with Fug. It's looking like, and everybody's been saying it, big brain energy, Lustlike. He's been waiting for the moment where Bomb is going to get stimulated and stimulated and stimulated, Omega pause, but to the point where V's going to come out. And V comes out, and now Lustlike is like, oh, I've been waiting for this moment for you to pop up so that you can come with me, and I can help you, like, hone and train on this new body. But that's the whole weird thing where V going to take over Bomb's body. Is Bomb going to get trained by his father to take over his own body? Is Bomb going to get convinced to work for Fug? Like, we don't know what those things led to. The biggest thing is that Lustlike accomplished his goal, because not only did, you know, a family head die, which is what his master wanted to see. Trauma did die, even though he didn't cause it, but it happened. He got his master back. Like, V's here. Like, we know that he exists. Like, Lustlike is a big W. Now, going into season 4, I don't necessarily know we get to see from Fug. You know, obviously we have the secretary girl who doubts Bomb, so we'll get to see some stuff there. Discovering that Bomb has somebody else within him, it's a little weird interaction there. Lustlike's next move is Bomb going to get taught by his father? Like, it's a lot going on within Fug right now. Their whole goal, you know, is to defeat the 10 family heads, and one is dead. So you can say that they accomplished their goal, no matter which way it kind of came about. But other than that, for season 4, obviously Fug is going to be deeply involved. We're going to get to see the inner workings now. Now that we've been introduced to Lustlike, obviously, V is now a part of, like, Bomb. So we'll get to see what Bomb's doing within Fug. I think if anybody took a W during this war and during this whole season, Fug has, like, may have started slow with, obviously, their Slayer's not doing too well, but they ended on a very, very strong note. So we already know season 4 is going to go hard for them. Pobito. A lot of people don't like this family because they're kind of book words, they're nerds, and it kind of turns out that a lot of them aren't actually real people. They're scriptures or whatever, and you can have your opinions about that. That's fine. But I like Pobito. I think they accomplished their goal as well, and they took a big W. Now, obviously, towards the end, losing their mothership is not a W, and we'll get to that stuff, but overall, they did manage to defeat Lobopia and with Traumari's pass. Already met Gustang since season 2. Good luck. Gustang has been slowly trickling in, helping with things as far as the Floor of Death, getting involved with Rachel with the Treasure Stingray. He has already been a part of the story since the workshop. Getting to see the inside of his family is one of the coolest things that we got to see, because they really are just a bunch of people who read, who have libraries on every corner. Like, I liked seeing the interaction with his family. And then we get to see, you know, how they kind of get galvanized for war. We don't really get to see that from Traumary's side, and this is why I say Lobopia was a bit kind of lacking. We get to see Gusting literally tell his family, we're going to war against Lobopia. Let's get it. We gonna tell the truth. Like, it's a hype moment. I love seeing that. We don't get that from Traumary, and that's kind of like when we get into like the character of Gusting and Traumary and how they treat their families. That's what I meant. And if you haven't seen the character video, check out the card here. But this is what I mean when we talk about how these two run their families. We get introduced to Belier around this time that we're getting to see their mothership and stuff. And early on, Belier seems like a cool character. He seems like, oh, this guy might be kind of strong. He seems smart, calculated. He's working with Rachel. Belier ultimately, to me, turns out to be a pretty much of a huge disappointment. But early on, at the very least, he seemed like a cool character, right? And then obviously we have the standouts in the Pobidal family, the Dumases of the world, the Michaels, the Prouses, like the top brass. We get to see, you know, not all of them necessarily fight. I would have loved to see more of Michael's ability. The way he put down Hugo was kind of like really, really small, little, no effort. So I would have loved to see his abilities. We didn't get to see enough from Prouse, and Prouse might even be dead based on the last chapter. So we don't even know what's going on if we'll see that scripture. And then obviously, I think the biggest hit out of all the Pobidal members was Tiara. I think everybody pretty much likes, or at least a majority likes, the Tiara. She's a really cool psychotic character who also could really scrap with or without her pen. She was giving people the business, and the hope right now in the community is that she comes back. If she doesn't, boo. But they made out really good in the war efforts as well. Prousing the army, they were pretty much holding it down. They had no problem when they came across the branch heads and seemed to have beat all the Lobopia branch heads within the area and then capturing them, and that's how Belier used them within the Killing Chess Piece game. The middle of the war, when they're going against Robodon and crew and the Revs, it don't seem like Pobidal was really doing much at that point. Prouse is like involved, but this is where I thought we would see more Prouse character, but we never really got to see it, especially when Urek popped up. Things kind of, you know, shit hit the fan. Obviously, Gustang, their family head, ultimately, after everything that happened, came out on top, and it resulted in Traumary's death. Despite what you may say about Gustang and his fighting style, whatever, overall, he won the war. Pobidal did win the war because it ended with the Lobopia family branch head dying. That's a big W for them. Now, things get tricky when Zahar's army now gets involved, with Adori popping up and seemingly destroying the mothership. Seemingly has no problem with facing off against Gustang. I don't think it's that simple personally, but I know people, they see something as cool as that, and it's a massive moment, so she gets a W. It's making Pobidal kind of have like a little bit of an L, or maybe a big L towards the end of the season, like the very last chapter. But in season 4, I think we kind of get away from Pobidal a little bit. I think we'll see a little bit of Gustang and his interaction. We don't know if he's going to be talking to Kun anymore, because obviously they had to escape the mothership. I think he still will be a part of the story, just we won't get to see a lot of his family anymore. So sad and sucks to say that we won't get to see a lot of Dumas, even though he's like a crowd favorite right now, but it's what it is. Now, Lobopia. Lobopia has kind of been the family that has been in our faces, not only just in season 3, because they were in season 2, but they've been in our faces for a while, okay? I think this family right now is the coolest family in terms of power and abilities. Being an Anima is probably like really one of the coolest things. Like, and this is why like the biggest gripe I had with season 3 is that we didn't get to meet the actual like Lobopia mothership. We don't get to see how the family structures actually work, how they live, how the city works. Like we got to see in Pobidal. We didn't get to see that. So that's like probably one of my biggest gripes about this faction and how they were written. Now, we did get to meet a bunch of members of Lobopia. There are tons of them in Zahar's army. We got to see them really, really early on at the first defensive wall, because a bunch of them are within Zahar's army. You know, obviously, you asked Ratcha, a couple of people in his group, and then you had Spider Mommy, and then Owl, and the big wing bird. Like, we're getting to see all different types of branch heads and powers between Lobopia, and it's really all cool. Like, they really, like, with their coolness and their abilities, did carry a lot of the boringness of the Cat Tower. But, and this is one thing that everybody was talking about at the time, they were losing. They were losing in the cat tower. Obviously, the wingward guy got defeated. Now, Spider Mommy didn't lose, but people below her lose. A lot of Yas Ratcha's people died. Yas Ratcha obviously died in the end, and he wasn't necessarily a part of Lobopia, but they did lose a lot of people. Obviously, Pooh Diddy, they lost branch heads, they lost hatchlings who got caught by Pobito, who murdered the hatchlings, and like Holland ended up being an L. Like, they were just taking L's everywhere. Then it didn't get any better as we get into the war with Kieran's betrayal. Kieran betraying his brothers and sisters, who ended up getting, some of them get slaughtered by Pobito after he teleported, and then some got captured. And then obviously Dumas come running into some of them in the Killing Chesapeake's game, killing them. Like, Lobopia was just taking L after L after L, bro. It was like the biggest L streak I think I've ever seen from a faction. And this is when I was saying, if you go back and watch my reviews, I know you won't, but I was saying that the writing is kind of on the wall for Traumary. Remember, guys, I was saying this, and I'm not saying I made a massive prediction, like I stuck on it all season, but and a couple of you agreed that like the writing was on the wall for Lobopia because they're losing a ton of members. They're losing all type of branch heads, all type of hatchlings, which is their future branch heads. Like will Traumary survive this? And I know the feeling of it doesn't feel that way because we know that Traumary doesn't care about his family. So maybe that feeling kind of leaked on to us a bit because we know that Traumary kind of experiments and makes new things and stuff. We never actually knew if we would actually see him die. Some people, even myself, we started to think that maybe him and Gustang may come around and, get together or anything like that. But no, Lobopia just lost tons of military might, and then they lost their family. Some of the cool stuff about Lobopia towards the end is that Robodon comes to take Traumary's body. We think he maybe wants to take it back to the mothership, maybe bury him, give him all his send-offs. Robodon's army gets stopped by Zahar's army, which appears to be Libolic's army at the in the last chapters. We have no idea what that's about. Now, I said I think that they come to take Traumary's body. What can you do with Traumary's body? I don't know. Maybe you could reanimate it. Maybe you can extract some powers and memories from it. There's tons of stuff that can happen with a corpse of a regular. Like, there's so many things that could be possibly done. Like, maybe the friends just wanted, maybe the 8, they just wanted to bury it and just to see the evidence of what happened. I can see a skirmish happening where Robodon's not giving that body up. Now, if Libolic and crew says that Zahar wants you to come back and we want to hear your side of the story, what happened at the war, what happened to Traumary, how did he die, examine the body, I could see that happening. But if it comes to a point where there is Libolic is basically demanding Robodon to give over the body, I could see Robodon not doing it and giving that man, like, whooping Libolic's ass, bro. So I think Lobopia has a very interesting future because they lost a lot of people, a lot of their future strength. Obviously, they still have the princesses, the twin girls or whatever, but at the very least, this seems like Lobodon's family at this point. As far as season 4 goes, I think we still get to see the twin princesses. I think we'll get to see like the aftermath of Lobopia, what happens to them, what happens to the mothership and stuff. But I don't think they'll be like as involved as like, say, Augustine may be down the line because obviously their family is dead. But I guess we'll see, right? So now, last but not least is Zahar's army, okay? And Zahar's army, we knew that we weren't going to get to see most of them. Now, Adori popping up at the end, total shocker. Caught everybody off guard. Love it. Good content. But we knew that they weren't necessarily going to get involved in the war. Now, talking about Zahar's army early on, Zahar's army are the ones who were coupled with Lobopia people who fought not only at the Wall of Peaceful Coexistence, but they also fought at the first and second defensive wall. Libolic and Caliban was a part of that, and the armies that fought to keep Fug out. These people, while they have Zahar's name at the end because they're within his family's army, they weren't really like the people that like I really wanted to see within Zahar's army. But I'm saying that like we wanted to see like the Adoris of the world, right? We wanted to see all the princesses of the world, right? Because especially after Yuri made that crazy comment that we can't forget, that all the princesses in Zahar's army can take out the 10 family heads. One of the craziest statements of season 3. I think we all can all agree about that, right? Insane statement by her. I still don't believe it. Ever since then, like me, I've been wanting to see a little bit more of Zahar's army. Now we get into Adori. Adori is a part of the Ari family. I don't think any of us really expected that. We never really got anything on her background. You know that she has the Gold November, one of the strongest blades as far as going on to this season 4. I think we do get to see a lot more of the princesses within Zahar's army, ones that are really, really involved. Obviously, Machete has been weird this entire season. She helped bomb. She was working with the boss in them. So we know that she's a little bit of war hungry. She wants chaos in the tower. She says this herself. The fact that we got introduced to Maria at the end also can mean that we're getting into the princesses, like the ones who really like have important roles within families and within Zahar's army, all who have different goals. We maybe even get to learn more about Ann Dorsey. So I think season 4 will be a lot about that. I also think in season 4 we get to see Zahar and the rest of the 10 family heads, or excuse me, the 8 family heads. We get to see them talk about Traumary's death, what happened in the war, how they proceed, bomb, everything. So we have to get that. I think we absolutely have to get that. And if we don't, I'll be massively disappointed. But yeah, that's all I have for Zahar's army. So I said last but not least, but I almost forgot Walkie Song. So Walkie Song is it's going to be a very short portion, because Walkie Song, we didn't get necessarily see the group. The only involvement that we had from them is Urek. Urek tells us early on when we get to see him, he is hunting a certain group. Now, we don't know who this group is. At this point, we're not really aware of the revolutionaries when he tells us this. Bayek Ryuk wants him to go hunt the revolutionaries. Now, Urek fails, okay? We know that he fails. He's not weak. He didn't get his ass beat or anything like that. It's just that he got stopped and hindered by Leslie. And he didn't necessarily do anything to the Revs. They get away, and we know that they run into Zahar's army, so we don't know what's going to happen to them. But he also failed to stop Traumary's death, because Urek says that he doesn't want any of the 10 family heads to die. He wants things to work out, because he knows that if somebody dies, the power balance gets upset, and then there's going to be war and chaos everywhere. He doesn't accomplish that goal either. So Walkie Song right now, they're looking like L's, okay? They didn't accomplish anything. You could blame Urek for it. You could blame Leslek for it. Whatever you say, the guy who's supposed to be the 4th strongest guy ever to enter the tower is looking bad. So Walkie Song, L, that's all I can really say about them. But if I'm ranking the groups in the factions from best to worst, right now at the top is Fug. Fug accomplished their goals with no problem. They came out good. They got bombed. They got a death of a family head. W. Number 2 would probably be the Revs. While they didn't necessarily, walk away cool, and we don't know what's going to happen to them next, they did also cause and help the death of a family head. They managed to escape. They managed to make their presence known, and that's really it. Like, they kind of walked away with their lives. Now, Pobeda only ranks under them. While they did accomplish the goal of Traumary's death, they lost their mothership towards the end. That's the only reason why I put them below the Revs. Next would be Zahar's army. Losing Traumary, losing a family head is a massive L for your military strength. We don't know what the interactions will be between, obviously Robodon at the helm and Zahar. Will he obey? Will he not? Walkie Song, who achieved absolutely nothing. While Urek looks good, we get to see his powers. He's cool. He got stopped by Leslek. He didn't prevent Traumary's death. He's an L. And then obviously Lobopia. Lobopia lost tons of people, tons of their future, and obviously their family heads, so they are the bottom faction right now. So yeah, guys, all I have for the faction part.
So we finally reached the last part of this season 3 review, and we're going to talk about the finality. So the last 6 chapters really cover everything that happened, how the season ended. So we're going to go through all that stuff. Was it good? The results of it, the significance of it in the story, everything that needs to be talked about in those last couple chapters. And we know that the officials just wrapped up, I think, last week. So it's a good time to, drop, something that's around that, right? Obviously, I have to do a little recap of the last 6 chapters, and I'm not going to go through chapter. I'm just going to talk about everything that happened. I'm not going to go into too many details, because obviously it's fresh in all of our minds. So let's just go with it. So in the last 6 chapters, chapter 647, V gets revealed. V transforms from Bomb's body and bodies Enkidu immediately, and in his vicinity he can see Gustang, Traumary, and Urek seemingly about to do battle. In the midst of this, Urek is arguing with Traum and Gustang. Gus and Traum are basically telling Urek, mind your business, this has nothing to do with you. And Urek bullshitting,
not really giving the reason why, which we found out is that Yuri and Bayek told him to check up and see what's going on with the war. So they have some exchanges, and Urek tells them, like, look, y'all better stop this before somebody takes advantage of this situation. Immediately after that's said, only person who sees it is Urek, sees V, which is Bob's body, immediately go for the attack on Traumarie and knocks him out. And then going from there, Gustang can't believe what he saw. He can see in Bomb's face and the way he's smiling that that's clearly not Bomb, that it's V who is supposed to be dead. Urek is also trying to understand, like, well, that's clearly not Bomb, but his body's being controlled, but what's going on? Like, he doesn't understand who this person is, why he's attacking Traumarie. And V tries to finish Traumarie, but Urek steps in, where V is, a little bit surprised by Urek's power. So V notices that he's at a disadvantage in this fight. So he plants what you can call a Shensu bomb next to Traumarie's body, and then takes off. But Urek catches him immediately, and he's really surprised by Urek's strength. In the midst of this, Leslie intervenes with V and him having a little exchange, like, Leslie, you must have noticed that was me. And he says, yes, master, of course. And they go to escape, but V's attack swirls and seemingly kills Traumarie completely. And V walks away with the saying that, don't worry, I'm going to send your friends along to join you soon. And that's how that chapter ends, and it goes right into the next one with V escaping, with Urek not being able to stop the attack, but we see that Gustang actually stopped the attack. And him and Urek have a bit of a conversation, like, who's that guy? Is somebody that Gustang used to know who should be dead, but it now makes things a little bit complicated because, how is he alive? And he's also another big factor. And this is my own personal opinion, but it's because V knows the truth about probably everything. And what he does with that information could affect how Gustang had planned to maybe, overthrow or, punish his friends. Let's continue with the recap. Gustang agrees with Urek that they're just going to play a chess match, so Urek can mind his business and not worry about anything. And then we go back down low where we see Kuhn's piece about to get stolen by Bellier, who fails. Him and Ann Dorsey take off to go, win the game, and Gustang comes down. And this is where we get the weird exchange with Gustang arguing with Bellier. Bellier is upset that, Gustang decided to let Bomb's friends win the game, which is confusing because, and it's one of the bad things about this finality, it's just like, again, this could be the result of V showing up, but Gustang's original plan was to let the vermin get rid of the family heads, including himself. And what changed, right? Like, what made you decide to not go with the plan? We still don't know the exact reason behind why he didn't do it. It made Bellier's attempts this entire latter half of the season completely irrelevant. Like, he really had a shit role that ended up not bringing him anything. So I understand why he's upset as a character at Gustang, because it's like, bro, you had me do all of this shit just to say no. And so with that, we know the results are, Gustang basically won the chess piece match because he had more chess pieces, and it goes to him and Traumarie playing chess. So Traumarie awakes after being knocked out, and the strangest thing about this is that Gustang and Traumarie don't talk about V's appearance. Now, we don't get to know whether or not Traumarie knew that was V, or he acknowledged his existence while he was there. We never got to see that. That is one of the most detrimental things, I think, about the finality. While if I had to give it an early rating, the finality is probably 8 out of 10. It's just that some of the things that needed to be wrapped up didn't get wrapped up, and just like V being there, Traumarie's reaction is an important thing that just didn't happen, right? Along with Rachel's. Rachel's is another one that I've mentioned several times. Just doesn't make sense that, we know the connection there between Arlen and Rachel. And obviously V being there should be another important thing given a reaction to, but we didn't get it. So in the midst of this, we get the conversation about Gustang and Traumarie and why Traumarie ended up the way he did. And he tells Gustang, like, well, loneliness. And we know that that's Traumarie's biggest thing. So I've always been lonely. I get lonely really quickly. We even see V say that before he leaves. He knows that Traumarie gets lonely very quickly. And so Gustang's like, you know what happened? I imagine that there's no way you couldn't have shared your feelings with someone. And he tells that, he had feelings for his kids in the beginning, which was, obviously Kieran and Robodon. But, he knew that they were going to eventually leave and one was going to betray him or not. And then he created Wang Wang, which is what he always wanted. The loyal dog who was never going to leave, who had never no intention. He, rewarded Wang Wang for being so loyal by giving him his most prized ancient. And, he believed that, the descendants of Wang Wang would be like the key gene, the key people that would stay loyal to him and be with him forever. But
Ultimately, we know none of this worked out because anxiety. Anxiety destroyed Traumery as a person. And it's very relatable in a realistic sense because we know that anxiety affects everybody in different ways. I was just watching the Hood movie recently where, you got to get out of the car and walk in between, your girlfriend's brothers and all his crew and everything, and how anxious that makes you feel because these guys are like gangsters and they're intimidating. It's like that's anxiety right there. And you can be anxious about anything, whether you going to a doctor's visit and you don't know what they're going to tell you, or you're going to a job interview. Like, anxiety eats up people every day. And Traumery's anxiety, and we're talking about thousands of years worth of it, destroyed him and made him such a pessimistic person that he never put his trust in anybody, even though it did come back to bite him in the ass that his family wasn't loyal. They all were going to betray him. A lot of them were. Kieran obviously was, for trash reasons. I still don't respect his reason, but he had the right to feel the way he did. However, it's kind of that thing, a life lesson where when you think something constantly, when you think it's gonna happen. If he approached his family as a family, treated them with love and respect, got to see them multiple, he goes to visit them because we know that the Lobopia family rarely got to see their family head. If he treated them like an actual family, then they're more likely to be more loyal to him versus fear him out of the sake of their name as a 10 great family. They're more likely to be personally loyal to him. But Traumery's nature as a person, he was never really good at connecting with humans to understand them, and obviously his anxiety destroyed him, which Gus then goes to say, well, I didn't even know you could feel something like that. And Traumery says, yeah, it surprised me too, which goes into my theory that I mentioned this a few times, that I believe that each family head has an emotion that they shouldn't be feeling that's probably dominating their spirit and kind of forces them to act the way they are. So, for example, we obviously have Traumery's anxiety. Gustang's guilt is destroying him, okay? It's made him make bad decisions. Obviously, not punishing Blossom and not punishing his friends in general is because he felt guilty. He felt guilty about doing it. He felt guilty about punishing Blossom because he knows how bad she feels about, killing all those people. He doesn't want to necessarily kill Traumery because we watched him during the fight go back and forth between like, oh, I really have to do this. Oh, I don't really want to do this. Even though he's supposed to be the guy to do it, the guilt is getting to him. And you can put a little bit of anxiety in there too, but not nearly to the level of Traumery. But it's getting to him. So it's my theory that that's how we'll see the rest of them. And it'll be up to us as an audience to figure out what that is early on, which will be fun. I think that'll be fun for us to do, as a community. But just continuing to recap, Gustang tells Traumery, like, look, you're stupid. You tried to fight against something, and you absolutely brought it upon yourself by trying to fight against it. And ultimately, the chess match ends. Traumery loses his immortality. We get to see the administrator pop up and take it from him, which returns his feelings. All of his feelings, or everything he's ever done, comes back to him, which makes him feel, I couldn't imagine what it feels like to have your feelings ripped from you and then released back into you. At that point, Traumery basically becomes human again. Because I've said several times that I don't see the family heads as human anymore. Once you remove your feelings and you have immortality, you're not human anymore. Robots can live forever. Electronics can almost live forever, right? They don't age, they don't learn things, they don't do anything. So that's kind of what the family heads are. So now that he got his feelings back and his immortality's gone, he's human again. And everything that he's ever done, the emotion of it floods back into him. And it's too great. It's too great of a price. It's too great of a feeling to feel. Like, I don't know if anybody could consume, especially what he did, could understand what that ball of feeling, how that would, what that would do to you. So Traumery ultimately checks out. He just can't take it and takes himself out. And I think seeing Anne Weeze at the end of it kind of spells what it is. Like, he had the love of his life, and he ultimately didn't trust her and got rid of her, and he just made terrible decisions. So that's the end of Traumery, and then obviously everything that happens afterwards with Robonon coming to get Traumery's body. The war is over. Everybody is basically gathering up their stuff, and it's time to head home, right? Get to see V head back to Fug with Leslek, and Jen Song's reaction to seeing V, but not it being Bomb is like a weird thing, and I think that'll be something good to see in season 4, whether or not Jin Song acknowledges like V's presence and how do you go about dealing with that. And then obviously there's also Urek's reaction, who ultimately failed, who admits that he failed and he didn't stop anything from happening, and that everybody, basically Yuri and Big's gonna be upset with them. And then obviously at the end we get to see Anik and Maria gets revealed, which is a crazy reveal. You can definitely expect to see her in season 4, with her finally being shown. And then, with the last chapter kind of wraps up with everything that's happening afterwards. We get to see the revolutionaries escape, hoping that their plans went through, and then we see Zahar's army in the background, so we don't know what's going to come from that. Same thing with Robodon. Robodon's leaving, and he has Traumary's bodies on the ship, but then he gets approached by Libolic's army. We have no idea where that's going to head. And then there's Fug, where we get to see Bomb basically waking up, and V's talking to him in his head and trying to tell him like, oh, feel the flow of everything. So we can assume that V and Bomb are gonna get to know one another. We have no idea what route that's gonna take. The transfer to a massive Fug flagship where they meet the secretary, who believe that Bomb is soft because Jin Song is soft emotionally, not physically. I think that's something that the community is a little bit confused about. But that's another thing that we'll get to get to experience and see. And then we roll on the Gustang, the Pobito family, where they're, got their forces gathered and they're getting up out of there, and they get approached by the 7th ranked person in the tower, the reveal of Adori, who directly has no problem approaching the Pobito family, destroying their mothership. In the midst of this, we see Gustang's reaction, who, seems to be surprised that she's here. Kun being approached by Lobo Pia Yule, saying, hey, we gotta get up out of here. And the destruction of Pobito mothership, like it happened, it was crazy. And that kind of wraps up with season 3. We can go from there to make our assumptions. Now, was it good? Was the finality of everything good? I think it was a massive climax.
I'm about to bust.
Several things happened that we've never seen before. There was a price and there was a payoff. We've never seen anything about a concept of somebody's body being taken over. Now, while you guys can go back and read season 3 like I did, it's been hinted towards that there was a being inside a Bomb for a while now, and that it was slowly getting peeled away, and that concept creates a wrench in the original story that we know from season 2 about what we know about V and Arlene. Originally, V was supposed to be dead. V was supposed to have ran away and possibly died. We don't know, but he left his mother. Now, V tells us himself that Bomb is a child of revenge, made for revenge, so it goes against what we originally knew, and we may get some truths about Arlene, and that's something like, I don't think anybody could have expected to happen. There's also the fact that a family had died. That's never happened, ever in the story. He got his immortality took, and then he ultimately killed himself, but we don't know what kind of effect that's going to have. So that already creates a great line into season 4, because obviously the whole world's got to react to something like that. Okay, that's like the president of a nation, passing, and that's massive. Like, especially in the context of how it happened. It's not like he chose to go. Well, in his sense, he did, but it was a result of the war and, the consequences he had to pay for losing the chess match. I think the climax of it all was really good. Storytelling flow was really good. I think the characterization of each person that we got to learn about, especially the wrapping up of Traumary's character in the end, where he tells us why he became the way he became, was very good. I think the fight in the end was decent. The exchange between the Traumary, Gustang, and Urek, I think all that stuff was really good. It's really high level stuff, even though like we've gotten used to seeing it, but it was really solid enough. We know that the fights throughout the war weren't that great, but that exchange was good enough for me. We get to see the power of these people. The results of the finality are, obviously I've already mentioned that the death of the family head is going to be massive. We'll get to see the reaction of that. Gustang's mothership being destroyed could also have a huge effect and result of what happens next to the Pobito family. Do they continue their revolt against the Zahar family and the rest of the family heads? Is Gustang injured? I don't think it's impossible for him to be killed, but did he lose his army completely? We don't know. I don't hope that happens, because I'm a little bit team Gustang here, but I don't think that happens. What is the results of Bomb? Does Bomb get stronger being with V? Does he get to learn this flow thing? Does he have to prove himself to this secretary person? I do love the fact that Bomb is separated from his friends, because we know that season 3 was hugely controversial for Bomb's massive jump from ranker to high ranker, and then leaving his friends at, I guess you can call, the base of average to low ranker level. I don't think I don't know if I can say Ann Dorsey's there yet, but we'll just call them all Bomb's friends currently sitting at the, lower ranker status. So they needed to get away so that they can, develop a little bit more on their own. And if Bomb gets stronger, he's obviously already high ranker level. Who knows where he gets? Maybe he gets to a Dumas region level or Robodon level. Who knows? But it would be weird to keep them together because it's basically Bomb protecting everybody for the most part, besides if they get separated, during a mission or something. But I'm glad that it happened. It's a great result. What we originally was led to believe in chapter 651 is that Kun would be traveling with Gustang. As we get to see at the end, Kun had to leave the mothership and leave with Yule. So maybe he's not traveling with Gustang. Maybe he doesn't get to see Bomb as soon as we thought he would. Maybe it'll be a time before he can get back in contact with Gustang, or, help to find Bomb, because Gusting did promise Kun that, yes, I'll help you look for Bomb. We don't know what they would have done together, what Kun could have learned from Gusting. It could have been a number of good things that happened from that relationship, but who knows where Kun ends up now. And then finally, Zahar's activity. Obviously, we get to see at the end Zahar's army approaching Robodon, approaching the Revs. Zahar is moving, okay? Traumary's death is massive, and there is a massive reaction coming. I think that's how we should start season 4, with the reaction of Zahar and the Great Family His about one of their friends passing, and obviously one of the leaders of the tower. I hope that's how we start, but we don't know. But that result, it's going to be massive. It's going to be really, really cool to see how everybody reacts to that, right? So, yeah, I think the finality was really, really good. 8 out of 10. I don't think it was perfect because there are some things that were left out that I think were important. But I think the art was spot on. I think characterization was spot on. I think Traumary's end, while it wasn't perfect, was good enough. And I think we have a lot of questions that we want answered going into season 4. So, guys, that wraps up my season 3 review. By now, if you're watching this video, this is a separate part, but I will be putting this all together in one compilation. So if you're watching that currently, thank you for watching it. It's probably an hour, 2 hours long, how long I made these videos. So thank you for watching the content and enjoying it. I will give a little sneak peek here. So in my Discord, somebody did reveal that some of CU's assistants did possibly mention that Tower God's not coming back until December of 2025. That's heartbreaking, okay? That hurts me, because obviously a lot of my content is Tower of God, but if that's the case, we're going to be waiting a little bit of a while. Who knows when the spinoff's going to start? So currently we're going into March of 2025. It could start at the beginning of spring, it could start in the summer, but CU did say that it would start sooner than season 4 would. So expect it in one of I would expect it in one of the following seasons. Whether it's spring, summer, or fall, it's going to come earlier. So we won't be completely left out of Tower, just so you can have a fresh start going into season 4. That's kind of what, I did, at the very least, read season 3. But thank you guys for those who watched this series. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope I didn't talk your head off too much, but I hope I gave you enough content of Tower of God to enjoy. Do me a favor, do share this content in Tower of God spaces for those who you think may like this type of content. Obviously, I've done Tower of God reviews on the weekly chapters, but for a season 3 review, this is and has to be my longest series and longest series of videos yet. Again, thank you guys for watching it. Please consider subscribing and sharing it to other talk spaces. Till then, if you guys have any recommendations on Tower of God content you want me to do while we are on this hiatus, do not be afraid to share it on this video. Slide in my Discord. Anything to contact me. I'm not hard to reach. I'm also on X. Links, all that stuff should be below. But again, I'll see you guys as soon as we're back with Tower of God fresh content. And till then, peace.